Afternoon today, and we have a wonderful group of speakers. The experience that we're going to get to listen to today and knowledge is it's remarkable. And having some conversations with some of the presenters prior to this, like I'm super excited just to listen to everybody and hear these stories. So first up, we have Drew Todd. Welcome, Drew. Drew is with CSI Pacific, and I'm going to let him fill in what CSI is. He's the manager of performance programs. Going to discuss being a carded athlete, what that means, how to obtain it. Drew's had some fun experiences himself. Twice he was with BC's mission staff, 2015 for the Canada Winter Games, 2017 for the Canada Summer Games. Smart man as well, graduated with a bachelor's degree in sports management. So we're looking forward to hearing from you, Drew. So take it over.
Awesome, thanks, Aaron. And I hope he didn't set the bar too high for the first guy coming in here, because I think it's only going to get better and better as we go out through the day here. But like Aaron said, I'm Drew. I work for Canadian Sport Institute Pacific and coming to you live here from my apartment in Victoria, BC. Hopefully everybody on the call here is staying safe and doing well, at least as well as you can during this quarantine. But, big thank you to Baseball BC, because this is a really cool opportunity, I think, for myself to really talk about what Canadian Sport Institute Pacific does in the high performance sports system and kind of ways that we can support the athletes on the call kind of reach the next level. So I'm just going to share my screen here, and I'll bring up some PowerPoint slides to go through everything. And start it off here. If I get going. Slideshow. Yeah, okay. Awesome. So hopefully everybody's seeing this here. I kind of want to talk a little bit about like what we do, and then I'll go into some detail as well on how athletes become carded through CSI Pacific, and then what the benefits are and the support services that athletes can get through us. I'm only on the call here for I think 20 minutes today, and I'll leave a bit of time for some Q&A after. So it's pretty kind of high level and not getting too much into the nitty gritty, but definitely if anybody has any questions after I speak today, totally happy to jump on a call or go back and forth via email. So when I do presentations like this, I kind of just like to start things off with a 2-minute promo video that CSI Pacific does. I think it probably captures things a little bit more eloquently than I can, and really kind of set the stage for what I'm going to discuss today. So I'll just press play, and hopefully everybody can hear it.
Be honest. You know the numbers, you know where you should be. Let's get on those numbers.
Athletes train twice a day, 7 days a week. They travel to the ends of the earth to prove themselves against the best. They come home with world titles, personal bests, and sometimes disappointments. At the Canadian Sport Institute Pacific, we are the team behind the team. The pit crew for British Columbia's Olympians, Paralympians, and high-performance athletes.
2 more minutes.
Through sports science, medicine, expert leadership, services, and programs, we provide a world-class multi-sport daily training environment. With campuses in Victoria, Vancouver, and Whistler, we are powering podium performances and helping athletes win medals for Canada.
stop it right there. But what I like about that video is it really kind of shows the range of services we provide, but also the sports and the athletes. So, Canadian Sport Institute is a multi-sport service organization. And, as you saw in the video, typically we work with sports that are in that Olympic or Paralympic pathway. But definitely here in BC, there's a lot of support we do provide sports that are non-Olympic or maybe only in Olympics every few rounds, like baseball. So, I'll get to them a little bit here. But just so you know, in case there's anybody on the call here from outside of BC, Canadian Sport Institute Pacific is part of a national network of sport institutes across the country. So we kind of have jurisdiction over British Columbia, but there's CSIs in Calgary, Regina, Winnipeg, Toronto, Montreal, and Halifax. And while we all kind of have the same overarching goals, which is training and supporting national team athletes here in Canada, we are independent organizations, so some of our services may vary. So just in case you've been engaged with CSI Ontario, and then you're kind of wondering why what you've heard there doesn't quite match up with what I'm going to talk about today, there's some slight differences in what we offer. And I'm always going to say, BC, everything we do is better than everywhere else in the country. So let's just kind of assume that going into all these conversations. So to really kind of lock in on what are the specific services we offer, we kind of have three main service pillars. So I keep saying the word service, maybe a little bit too much, but the first one is performance services, sometimes known as sports science or sport medicine. So we hire experts in various disciplines that you can see on the screen there. So we have biomechanists on staff, mental performance consultants, dietitians, physiologists, strength conditioning coaches, etc. And the way we kind of deploy these staff is a lot of national training groups come to BC to centralize and train, and they flesh out their integrated support team with not just their own coaches, but a lot of sports science staff to come in and do testing. They come in and do regular, strength conditioning with our coaches in our daily training environment, things like that. The second pillar to talk about is in research and innovation. So at each of our three campuses, we have a lab, a mobile lab or a set lab that we are contracted often by outside organizations and businesses or Sport Canada, or we work closely with, say, UBC or UVic, and run studies with their doctorate programs. So a lot of really cool innovations come out of our labs and what we do that then are adapted by training programs and Canadian national teams moving forward. And then the third service pillar is what we call system enhancement. And while the first two are very kind of narrowly focused, so for example, you have an S&C coach might only work with 10 to 30 athletes through an entire year. System enhancement is our pillar that really looks at the entire provincial high performance system and tries to support as many athletes as possible, at least as many athletes that really meet our high performance criteria. So I put in bold there athlete coach benefits, because those are the ones I'm really going to speak to in detail, because those probably affect the majority of the athletes on the call today. But we also do a lot of really cool education programs, not just for athletes, but also for coaches. We run a program called Game Plan, you may have heard of, and this is where we kind of work with the Canadian Olympic Committee to provide support services for national team athletes when they're retiring. Many of you have probably seen commercials for something called RBC Training Ground. So that's a national talent identification event, but it was designed based on something that we first implemented here in BC. And we actually have the technical lead of the national program still housed within Canadian Sport Institute Pacific. So, we do quite a lot of different things at Canadian Sport Institute Pacific, all with that overall intention to get, athletes onto that, Olympic podium, World Championships podium, or in case of baseball, get them to the show, into NCAA programs, that kind of thing, really with that, high level in mind. Now you're probably asking, how do you get access to the benefits and services, or how do you get identified as a high performance athlete? And in BC, it's a little bit of little bit of a process that we work on an annual basis with our governing bodies. So the sport of baseball, Baseball BC governs the sport of baseball here. And every year, what I will do, or somebody from my team, is we'll sit down and have a conversation with your guys' kind of technical leads and develop criteria or set certain benchmarks to capture, what the best athletes in BC need to be doing and need to be hitting to really recognize that they have the potential to one day represent Team Canada or get to that highest level. So, we developed this criteria that says, what are the teams you need to make at certain stages in your career? What are the technical skills, the physical skills that you need based on your position or in your own development, etc. Once we kind of lock down on what that criteria is, we move into phase 2, which is we call nomination. And this is where Baseball BC goes and looks at every single player in the province and sort of slots in athletes to each of those levels that we've identified in phase 1. And eventually we'll come up with a list of about 50, 100, 150, all depends on the different sports, of what we call targeted high performance athletes that are then eligible to come in and access our benefits and our services. Because we really focus our benefits simply to high performance. That is sort of what we are contracted for from Sport Canada, is to get more medals for Canada. So we really only kind of work with the best of the best. Once the list has been made, Baseball BC will contact all the athletes and coaches listed there, notify them they're eligible to come and register with one of our 8 centers across BC. Those athletes and coaches come in, we sit down, have a meeting with them for an hour, and then they're issued a card, a physical CSI Pacific card that will then give them the ability to engage with our programs and benefits. And you'll probably notice I said 8 centers across BC, but that video only had 3 centers. CSI Pacific, so Canadian Sport Institute Pacific, sorry, as shorthand there. We do only have 3 campuses, so Vancouver, Victoria, and Whistler. But we partner with another organization across BC called Pacific Sport, and they have smaller centers across the province that do a lot of the same support services we do. So they're based in smaller regions, Nanaimo, Prince George, Kamloops, Kelowna, and Langley. So ideally, wherever you are in the province, we should have somewhere and some support available to you to really help take advantage and encourage your development as an athlete. So once you kind of come in and get that card from us, we have 4 levels of athlete cards, and we work on a tiered servicing basis. So, the higher level of athlete card you have from us, the better benefits and programs and services you get. But that's not to say that kind of at that entry point of provincial development, you're not getting a lot of benefits. Depending where you are in the province, you can access up to $4,000 to $5,000 worth of value in kind support, even at that entry level. So, and just to note too, kind of when you first come in, if you get a card from us that says provincial development, that's not saying you aren't an elite athlete by any means. It's just sort of the language and the terminology we use in the system. But every athlete that comes in and is targeted to get support from us is elite, just kind of for their age, for their level. Okay, so that's a bit more of a high-level overview of the process of getting targeted and what we do. But let's kind of get into the details here of, why do you want to register with us? Really, what is the benefit of doing so? What do you get? What can you access? So, especially for athletes kind of at that entry level that don't have a full-time daily training environment with sports scientists, we have this category of benefit called community partnerships, where our staff go out in the local community, local regions, and negotiate discounts on services, products with businesses that we expect to really help push you to that next level, or even just kind of remove some financial barriers. So it's a pretty, obviously, it can capture a lot of different things that'll help support you, but one of the biggest benefits that we have, especially to those younger athletes, is the card we give you essentially counts as a free gym pass to about 150 plus gyms across the province. You can go in there, you show your card, you get free access to their weight room or any additional sort of services that individual gym has. Now, obviously, to address the elephant in the room, COVID has compromised this benefits pretty significantly. Even just within the last week, there's been a lot of shutdown on any sort of fitness training facilities and strength conditioning, that kind of thing. So I can't necessarily speak to the different protocols of every single gym in the province, but in a perfect world, when we do get out of this pandemic, you're going to be able to access some sort of weight training completely free of charge in your region, simply by coming in and registering with us. The quality of the gyms, sure, that differs a little bit, and what's near your home may not be what you need, but I think for most athletes at your level, it's pretty hard to go without any sort of weight training or any sort of strength and training to develop in your sport. So, that'll save you guys $500 alone right there for an annual gym pass. Some other partnerships we have, based on the region you're in, you can get discounts on groceries or restaurants, eateries, that kind of thing. Obviously super impactful to high performance athletes, because as you guys all know, not only do you need very good quality food to fuel you for workouts and training, but the quantity of food that athletes have to eat is pretty significant. Probably in the sport of baseball, it might depend a little bit on your position, but I'll talk to some of our rowers or rugby players who are just absolute monsters. They're putting in 6,000, 7,000, 8,000 calories a day just to keep going and maintain their muscle mass. So even in the sport of baseball, you guys are probably needing to eat a lot more than the average Joe there. So that can be a super beneficial discount service. We also partner with local health clinics that provide paramedical services to athletes. So these are things like, physio, massage therapy, chiro, and really for athletes that don't have a strong extended health plan with their insurance providers, this can be very beneficial as well. So you get 25% off, 50% off physio treatments. And another really cool benefit that most of our clinics offer is priority booking. So that can be a massive barrier for a lot of athletes that, they need to get in and see a physiotherapist tomorrow so that they can continue training and they don't have to leave massive gaps in their training simply because they couldn't get in to see a service provider. And then we have a number of other partnerships, but some of our more popular ones are based on training apparel. So you guys, I'm not sure if you've heard of the company 2xu or 2xu, but they have really solid compression gear and training gear. And the partnership we have with them is any registered athlete can get 50% off any of their products from their online store. We can also get you discounts at the Nike superstores in Vancouver, or Icebreaker gives 50% off. So, there's a lot of really cool partnerships we have out there that we do think will significantly impact athlete performance and athlete training. Some of the other benefits that we offer registered athletes is regularly we'll put on or we'll offer out athlete grants. So just within the last couple of weeks, actually, at CSI Pacific, we just gave out about $6,000 of athlete grants, and we're probably going to do the same thing in the spring. I know some of our other centers around BC have their own grants as well for athletes in their region. In Victoria, we have a staff physiotherapist who will give 100% free physio treatments to athletes. So that's another cool benefit depending on where you live. And we also, throughout the year, put on tons of sport education programming. And I think during this pandemic, that sport education programs have been in demand more than ever, especially as we learn new technologies like today. You can have an entire conference or just completely online. And it's a really cool opportunity, I think, to take advantage of the experts out there in the system and really pass on some of that information. So, we run a lot of NCCP modules for coaches. We have regular speaker series events, and we do our own kind of athlete conferences as well. Let's see what I got for time. Yeah, so just a couple more slides here left. Just to give you a few more reasons why you should be registering and taking advantage of the benefits. If you're a targeted athlete it takes about an hour once a year to come in and register and get your athlete card from us. Not a significant amount of time, but depending on where you live, we go through a process each year of assigning a dollar amount next to every benefit offered throughout the province. And, at our smallest amount, if you're, say, based up in northern BC, you're probably only getting about $1,000 worth of value if you register with us. Nothing to sneeze at for an hours of your time, but if you're down in Victoria, could get up to $5,000 worth of benefits. And definitely, you'd have to take advantage of everything we offer to get, the full value. But like I said earlier, every athlete needs to go to the gym. And if that saves you $500 throughout the year, for a young athlete, $500 can be pretty impactful and pretty meaningful. And one other thing to really showcase the value of registering with us and engaging with the multi-sport system here, we've been getting these targeted athlete lists from about 50 different sports across BC for the last 10 to 12 years. And we go back and crunch the numbers. We find that about a quarter of the athletes that are targeted every year kind of convert up that pathway to eventually make a senior national team. So it's kind of like an inverted triangle. Your athlete pool there's quite a bit up here, but each year, like only about a quarter of the athletes get to the next level, a quarter of athletes get to the next level. Eventually you got your small handful of athletes that, make national teams and get engaged in that program or get to the highest levels of sport. So on the face, that might not really say much, but when we dig into that number a little bit further, what we find is that athletes that have registered with us, they convert at a much higher level than that 25% number. And athletes that don't register with us are far below that 25% number. So the light pink bar there kind of shows our registered athletes. The orangey brown bar there is non-registered. And what you can see is that each year, we're talking anywhere from 10 to, actually a bit higher, like 20 to 30% greater chance to convert simply by coming in and taking advantage of the resources we offer in the system. Now, I can't say for sure what benefits are being accessed and how much of each, but there's a real, not just a tangible benefit to registering with us, but there's a lot of intangible benefits that come along with registering, just to find out about kind of what is the scope of the sports system. What do my development pathways look like? What do other sports do that I can learn from? Things like that. So I think this kind of graph alone is a pretty powerful reason to, once again, take the 1 hour each year and to really take advantage of what you have open to you as a targeted high performance athlete. So just to summarize, athletes, they get on that list based on potential to represent national teams, and it's created by Baseball BC in consultation with us. Once you're targeted as an athlete, you can get access to thousands of dollars of VIK by coming in and registering with one of our centers. And we do have data showing that there is a pretty significant increase in your conversion rate simply by doing so. So not a lot of reasons not to take advantage of that. So if we have time, I'm happy to take some questions. Obviously, we want to get moving on to the next speaker as well. So if I don't get to it, please feel free to reach out to me via email or give me a shout on the phone, and I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about CSI, our role in the system, and what we do. So Aaron, I don't know if I need to see a chat box if there's any questions, or if you're moderating questions.
Yeah, I'm waiting to see if some questions are coming in. Right now, I've seen no questions come in for you. While we're waiting, one, thank you for that presentation. That's awesome. Just that information, right? It's having you walk through that is huge. Question coming in, and it's going back to I think people want to hear some stories. They said they found out you were part of the summer games and the winter games. What were some cool moments from that for you, or things that you saw, people you met? Like, sure, because that obviously that relates to athletes and the potential the possibilities they have in their sport. But from you, like, share some stories.
Some stories, yeah. Well, mission staff can get a little bit wild sometimes, so probably not all of them are appropriate. But no, yeah, I served on mission staff at 2015 for the Winter Games, 2017 for the Summer Games, and I'm going to be doing it again in, I guess, 2022 now for the next Summer Games because they were postponed a year.
Yeah.
You know, it's really fun seeing athletes kind of come up and learning about a bunch of new sports. So, you know, the first time I did mission staff, I worked with freestyle skiing, and I didn't really know a ton about freestyle skiing other than, like, you know, it looked sick watching it on the X Games, and you know, they love their Mountain Dew and Monster and things like that. But just kind of learning a lot about their culture. They're exactly how you think they'd be, completely chill, relaxed guys. And then when you see them on the mountain, they're doing flips and 360s and things like that. And, you know, I got to meet a couple of the athletes that ended up going and representing Canada at the World Championships the next year. And you're kind of seeing them on CBC Olympics, and you're thinking, holy cow, like, I knew this little snot-nosed kid just a couple of years ago, and they're just crushing it. And, you know, they're, you know, all these Red Bulls now sponsoring them. They're in commercials and things. That was really cool. Then in Winnipeg, actually, I wasn't working with baseball, but my roommate was. And well, I guess a bit of a funny story. He was supporting baseball, and they asked him to do a bit of their laundry for the next game because I guess they were out in the rain, got a little bit muddy, and the laundry facilities weren't available for the team. So he runs across the street to a little local laundromat and starts doing every player's uniform late at night. And he pulls out some of the pants and he realizes, oh my God, like how hot did I put the water on? These things have shrunk. So he's freaking out because a bunch of the pants are super small. He's like, oh my God, like they got to play a game tomorrow. So he brings them back to the room. He's hanging them in our bathroom, and he's trying to stretch them out and do all these things. And I don't know what's going on. So the next morning, he just puts his tail between his legs. He talks to the coach like, I'm so sorry. I hope I didn't ruin your entire competition. And they're like, you know, those pants are meant to be short. They pull their socks up, man. It's not a big deal. You didn't shrink anything, dude. So he's up till 4 a.m, like just having a panic attack, and did absolutely nothing wrong. Just had no idea that some players wear their pants a little bit shorter.
Oh my goodness, that's hysterical.
Yeah. Always a fun time at a multi-sport games.
Oh, absolutely. They got a question came in. How specifically does an athlete get nominated by Baseball BC to get carded?
Yeah, I don't have that at my fingertips right now, but if you contact Baseball BC, they should be able to tell that for you. Also, on the Canadian Sport Institute Pacific website, we have a drop-down section that says sport eligibility. You might have to search for it a little bit, but what it has is it showcases every single sport that we work with and the benchmarks and the criteria that you need to hit to reach that level. So I didn't put it on the screen there, but the website's www.csipacific.ca. And if you find the sport eligibility page on there, you'll be able to see what baseball has. Typically for most sports, that entry level is around kind of your Team BC level. You know, if you're going to say the Canada Summer Games representing Team BC, you're kind of at that entry point in the high performance pathway, though it can change depending on the sport, depending on what that pathway looks like.
Yeah, awesome. And a contact at Baseball BC, I know, is Scott McKenzie. And you can find his website on the Baseball BC, or his email on the Baseball BC website. So Drew, we're out of time. Thank you so much. That was fantastic. And again, thank you for all the info. Thank you for your time. I'm not sure I appreciate that San Francisco 49ers banner on the wall behind you, but that's okay. That's okay.
All right, yeah. 2 or 3 ain't bad, eh? All right. You know, thanks, guys. Yeah. I really appreciate it, and you know, enjoy the rest of the conference. It looks pretty amazing today. So
awesome. Great. Thanks, Chubb. Thanks, Drew.
Aaron, you good?
Good to go.
Okay. Should I just go?
Sure, let's do it.
Okay. Hi, everybody. My name's David. I'm with Baseball BC, and I'm real excited about today's lineup and happy here to spend a couple of minutes talking about the Baseball BC high performance pathways. It's a question we get asked a fair bit here out of the office and out in the general baseball community. So I wanted to make sure that we were taking some time to speak to it today. I am going to share my screen here, hopefully, and make sure that we are able to see the slides. I think we're in good shape. So I am going to begin here from a Baseball BC high performance pathway standpoint. So Baseball BC provides programming options for all of the following levels of play. Oh, there we go. They include the 17U Baseball Canada selects that compete at the Baseball Canada Cup, the 16U BC selects that participate in the Northwest Futures Championships in Bellingham. We also send a 15U team and a 14U team to that same event in Bellingham. We move over into our girls programming, and we offer programming at the 16U girls selects level, which participates at the Baseball Canada 16U Girls Championships. Our 14U girls selects participate in the Western Canada Baseball Association Girls Championships. And our 21U women's and women's open invitational teams also participate at their respective Baseball Canada Championships. So we are very proud to be able to offer programming specific to those age groups. Baseball BC and its high performance program are doing a program audit at the moment and taking into consideration any and all other opportunities that may make sense for our programming, which may include the addition of new levels of team or provincial teams, and of course, new competitive opportunities. A couple of examples for additional competitive opportunities could be the New Balance Future Stars event, which we had committed to participate in before COVID-19 took hold in our community. We hope to circle back to that when the time is right. And we'd also explored some preliminary discussions of attending the Best of the West in Kamloops, so for some of our teams and divisions. So we'll continue to look for opportunities that make sense for our programming as we go. And we look forward to reporting when that opportunity presents itself. Always asked what athletes are eligible to participate for a provincial team in Baseball BC. And the answer is fairly simple. Any BC resident or citizen who is age eligible. Baseball BC member in good standing. Now, one question we do get asked is, a Baseball BC member in good standing, do they have to participate with one of the Baseball BC provincial level members, such as BC Minor Baseball or the Premier Baseball Association or Little League or Babe Ruth? And the answer there is no. You're able to become a member at Baseball BC through participating in our proprietary programming, such as our high performance program. So I do know in the past we've had some athletes that have participated in our in-house teams, and maybe for a team like the Crush in Bellingham, we have never looked away from a BC resident or citizen who is age eligible. So the opportunities are for all people from British Columbia, and we look forward to continuing that opportunity and providing that opportunity rather. And obviously, an athlete needs to be identified through any of the following opportunities in order to be eligible at our high performance program. One, you could be identified through the Baseball BC watch list, which we will talk about in a minute. Another area where you could get identified is through our regional ID session programs. Again, we'll explore those here in a little bit. You could be named to a Baseball Canada national team, senior men's, senior women's, national junior team. All are areas where, if you are lucky enough and fortunate enough to be identified and get the opportunity to play there, you are immediately eligible for our programming. We also provide injury exceptions. Every year, athletes are working real hard, and on occasion, unfortunately, they get banged up and aren't able to participate for a set period of time, we will not hold that against an athlete. We do understand that we don't want athletes rushing back to participate in our program. Being healthy is our primary concern, so we will provide injury exemptions if they make sense, and the athlete is really hurt. We'll look into that to allow for that. And of course, we will entertain any reason for exemption for our high performance programs. Safe to say they won't all be accepted, but if there is a real reason why an athlete can't start through our program at the regional ID or make a watch list. An example that we've had over the years has been somebody that is in grade 12 and has provincial exams. Obviously, we want to make sure that student athletes are taking care of their business in the classroom. That would be a reason for us to allow somebody to be considered for Team BC selection that didn't go through a regional ID, didn't play for the junior national team, or didn't participate or didn't get named rather to the Baseball BC watch list. So there's several ways where an athlete becomes eligible for our programming, and our goal is to say yes. We try really hard not to say no. There are some reasons where we would have to, but for the most part, we're looking to make our programming accessible for everybody. As I mentioned a while back, we're going to talk about the Baseball BC watch list here. The Baseball BC watch list was added to the selection process in 2007 on a smaller scale and expanded in 2018 to include all levels of our play. That would be the 17U selects group, the Baseball BC prospects group, and of course our female Baseball BC selects programming. And the reason for this introduction was we wanted to utilize a new mechanism that allowed us to reduce the number of athletes attending a regional ID session. In the past, we've had centralized cattle calls is what I would reference them as, and others might agree with that, where we bring anybody who's interested in trying out to one park somewhere, usually in the Lower Mainland, at cost and expense from parents and athletes from all over the province, to have them go through a tryout process that really sees the athlete only active for a short period of time. We decided that that was not conducive to athlete well-being, and we wanted to be an athlete-centered program. So we needed to reduce the number of athletes in that environment. So we created the watch list. The watch list is created and managed in collaboration with the Baseball BC member groups, their clubs, and the Baseball BC high-performance coaches and staff. We have 3 separate watch lists for athletes. One is at the 17U selects level, so any athlete that is in consideration to play for our Baseball Canada Cup 17U selects team could be added to that watch list. We also do so for our prospects group. Now, the prospects group encompasses 3 levels or 3 age groups of play. That would be 16U, 15U, and 14U. And those athletes would be eligible to attend the Baseball BC Prospects Camp if they were nominated to the Baseball BC watch list. And we've also started doing so as recent as this year, the female selects watch list. This is especially important for our female athletes because of the critical mass and the fact that we are spread out all over the country. It's prohibitive for some of the athletes to make it to a regional ID session while we're trying to grow the female side of our sport. So the female selects watch list was created last year. I think it's very important to share with everybody here today that being added to the watch list doesn't guarantee you an invite and simply allows you to be considered without attending a regional ID. Our watch list has, up to 50 participants at the selects level. We only invite 50 people to camp. So just because you're on the watch list doesn't mean you would necessarily be guaranteed an invite. We will take all information, relative and otherwise, into consideration as we are finalizing invitations to each of those camps. Like I said, the watch list just permits you to skip a regional ID if there was other reasons to do so. So there's some information on the Baseball BC watch list. Also wanted to spend some time talking about the regional ID sessions. This is the tryouts that we used to hold in one center in the province and have everybody come to it. We decided several years ago, again, as I suggested, that this is not really athlete centered. So we wanted to make it easier for the athletes and their families to participate in our program. We decided we were going to go to a full regional approach with our ID sessions. And In the last couple of years with this approach, we have held regional tryouts throughout the province that include locations in the Lower Mainland. We always try to do 2 or 3 dates in the Lower Mainland. We would use the South Island as an area that allows athletes to gather. We also do so in the North Island, minimizing travel for our folks from the island. We use the South Okanagan, which would be the Okanagan Valley, from Vernon down to Oliver, I would guess. The North Okanagan has also been utilized here in the last couple of years. We've done some stuff in Kamloops and would service Kamloops, Vernon, potentially Salmon Arm and areas like that. We've also traveled to Prince George in most of the most recent years here to identify the athletes up there. Obviously, it's very difficult for athletes in the north to travel all the way to the Lower Mainland or to the Okanagan. So we've tried where possible to bring programming to them. We've also done some in the trail in Kootenays. Long-standing athlete success coming out of that area. Jason Bay is a specific example of somebody who hailed from trail that did pretty good in their professional aspirations. And there's other areas where we would consider doing regional IDs. I have a note here that suggests we have recently done some in Cranbrook as an example, when we've got athletes that are interested in participating in our program and the Rocky Mountains are an obstacle. We feel obligated as a provincial sport organization where possible to collaborate with the local associations and bring that identification process to them. So we're quite proud of the movement that we've made in this area, and we will continue to look for ways to bring programming to the masses and really reduce the time constraints and the cost involved in participating in our programs. Where does that bring us now with some more regional ID stuff? I've always been asked as well here to speak to what a regional ID session looks like and how it's operated. I think this is important for the group. Our regional ID sessions are run as a traditional Major League Baseball tryout with evaluations done for athletes at one position and pitching. If you're a dual guys are permitted, dual guys and gals are permitted here. And we obviously want to take some evaluation time offensively or hitting for all of the athletes participating. The following disciplines are evaluated in this environment. Sorry, we'll do 60 yards, 90 foot, and 100-foot running. We use sprinting gates and we will use stopwatches in that environment. We will also evaluate arm strength. We will evaluate glove and footwork from a defensive standpoint. We will evaluate hitters' ability to make contact on the regular basis. Obviously, power is a component that baseball people are interested in evaluating and teaching. And important to note that technology is used in all testing and evaluation situations rather to ensure consistency and to continue to allow us to move beyond the simple eye test. Examples of some of the technology Baseball BC has accumulated or partnered with other groups to possess include radar guns, Rapsodo hitting and pitching systems, timing gates, and the likes. We have concluded that the simple eye test is not exactly something that makes sense anymore with analytics and metrics becoming more prevalent in our sport and the ability to defend team selection becoming something that is really important in our world. We wanted to add some quantifiable metrics to the evaluation process as opposed to the time-tested eye test rather. All athletes are graded in the same manner to ensure consistency province-wide. We work with our contractors and our provincial team coaches when they are running ID sessions province-wide to make sure that we are being fair in that approach. We use a scale of 5 system for all disciplines in our evaluations, with 5 being outstanding. Outstanding would be somebody who is highly projectable, currently at the top of his or her class skill-wise, considered the best players available. And 1 being poor, not yet mastered the skills required for consideration in our program. All 5 of the disciplines are scored by combining raw evaluation scores and eye tests to metrics, considered universally accepted for baseball scouting at this time. We do use a weighted average to ensure that the 5 skills are considered but not all equally. I think you'd see that in a lot of other scouting or combine environments. And this program is ever evolving for us and process. We want to make sure that we're getting the right athletes to the right opportunities based on their abilities, their past play, and certainly their play at the moment. All athletes who have tried out province-wide are then ranked and considered against others from the same position. Important to note that we don't just rank all 350 athletes on the guys' side and 75 athletes on the women's side that go through our regional IDs and then just take the top ones, because you find yourself with not having the positional coverage you would need to execute a training and development camp and team selection. And you don't want to have 15 shortstops in a tryout that will likely see 1 or 2 athletes added to the team. So we will make sure we have more opportunities than 1 or 2 that would make the team ultimately, but we don't want to mislead anyone here, and wanted to ensure that all of the selection decisions are made based on ranking players of the same position. Once all of that is completed, invitations are issued based on roster needs for camp and positional breakdowns established by the coaching staff of the respective camps. I spoke to that here just a second ago. As we move on from there, we think it's important to speak a little bit to the national team injury exception and other issues. As I mentioned earlier, athletes named to Baseball Canada national teams do not need to be considered. An athlete injured during the ID or tryout timeframes are eligible to be included should they be not able to try out due to the said injury. Other exceptions are possible and may be considered on a one-off basis should it be. When we get from that position, maybe my presentation isn't showing, so I apologize for that. I'll keep going here. Athletes successful in proceeding past the regional ID or watch list stage will earn an invitation to the Baseball BC provincial camp. Baseball BC provincial camps are currently offered for the following. Once again, 17U BC selects, Baseball BC prospects at 16U, 15U, and 14U, Baseball BC girls provincial camp, 21U, 16U, and 14U. And our provincial camps will have the following maximum participants. We don't want to have tons of athletes around that make it harder for the successful ones to make it, nor do we want to be considered to have too many people in an environment to make it worth everybody's time. So we will invite approximately 50 athletes to the 17U Selects camp and about 90 athletes to the Baseball BC Prospects camp, which again encompasses those 3 levels of play at 16U, 15U, and 14U. And finally, our Baseball BC Girls Provincial Camp will have about 90 athletes max again, and that is for our 21U, 16U, and 14U age groups. More information about the Baseball BC provincial camps to share. We do consider them development camps as well as being used for team selection. We have some tremendous club programming throughout this province, but not every athlete gets the opportunity to play for one of those tremendous clubs, sometimes for reasons outside of their control. So we want to make sure we're offering some development to our programming when we bring athletes together from a provincial standpoint. These camps are staffed by our best coaches, including some ex-professionals and national team players and coaches. It's really important to us to align our alumni and those that have come back to the sport after chasing it either provincially or collegiately. And we're always grateful for those that want to come back and give back to the athletes. Camps last between 2 and 4 days. Camps are usually held in the Lower Mainland, but that's not always the case. Traditionally, or historically, we've done some things in the Oliver and on the island, in the Okanagan rather, in Oliver and on the island. And team selection in these provincial camps then go on to represent Baseball BC at Baseball Canada, Western Canada, and Pacific Northwest events. For more information, for anybody that might have some, you can visit our webpage at www.baseball.bc.ca and check out the High Performance tab. Or you can contact either myself or Scott McKenzie at the Baseball BC office. And the phone number here is 604-586-3312. I think I'm realizing I didn't share my screen. So I'm going to put my presentation on our webpage for those that didn't see the PowerPoint, but I'm happy to take some questions here from anybody that might have some on the Baseball BC High Performance Pathways. Aaron, do you have any questions that have come in?
Yeah, David, we have a couple questions that came in. How old does a player need to be to start being registered?
So I think that question was about the CSI opportunities, and because they are aligned with the presentation I just did, I'm happy to share that the nominees for the CSI Pacific opportunities include athletes that make our provincial team. So you have to be age eligible. So for our 14U age group on the boys side, you would need to be 14, and for the 16U female team, I think you would need to be a minimum of 14 years as well. So I think the minimum age is 14.
Okay. Yeah, just people putting all this together. This is fantastic information. Do players in the summer games become carded with CSI?
That's a great question. Not the BC summer games, but certainly if you make the Team BC selects, get an opportunity to participate in the Canada summer games, you would be identified as a member of that final team.
Okay. Yeah, those are the two questions we had there for you. So
okay.
It's yeah, the presentation, getting that on the website, that's gonna be great. Great resource for everyone to get back on and see that, because that's a lot of information.
Perfect. Yeah, we'll make sure that gets there. And I do apologize to everybody. I hit the button and then looked to the camera, and I guess I missed it. So I'll chalk that up to being a rookie. But hearing no more questions, I did want to take a couple of minutes to talk about Aaron and Aaron's past and history here. Hopefully you're okay with that, Aaron. This is an audible at the line of scrimmage for sure, but we've got some really great speakers on here today, and I think we would be remiss in not asking Aaron about his journey to his baseball career. Kid from Surrey made good on the world stage, participated in the 2004 Olympic Games, first round draft pick by the Chicago White Sox, and played in the big leagues of baseball. So Aaron, how would you describe some of the obstacles you had to endure as a young kid getting to that stage? So put yourself, if you will, into the age group of the kids that are on this call here today and those that are looking to advance one base at a time. Are you able to give any insight into some of the things that you maybe have experienced that they might be experiencing here along their path? Absolutely.
You know, it's it can seem overwhelming, obviously, you know, as a young athlete, young baseball player, especially being in Canada, tucked away up here, and a lot of those opportunities that present themselves at the next level, university and professionally, are down in the States. Part of this conference is, you know, highlighting avenues for our Canadian athletes to get these opportunities, but you'll see with some of the speakers as well, you know, when we get to Chris Pritchett with UBC, that these opportunities are presenting themselves in Canada as well. So the opportunities that really, there's a lot more opportunity now than when, you know, myself and, you know, other guys from Surrey, Kevin Nicholson, another one that was drafted and got to play in the big leagues from Surrey as well in my era, which is a while back. But just the opportunities with Baseball BC, Baseball Canada, the coaches around, creating these opportunities for our youth is a huge advancement. I'll flip to the more personal side where don't let that discourage you. You know, my encouragement, what I talk to young athletes about is don't let the odds or the numbers, or we're in Canada, discourage you, because you say, you talk about me from Surrey, you talk about Kevin Nicholson from Surrey, you talk about Ryan Dempster from Gibson. It's like, these are guys in my area, Chris Mears from Victoria, all guys that pitch in the big leagues and from up around here. But one of the common things with these athletes is their work ethic, and how hard they work day in, day out, rain or shine, snow or not. These athletes were putting in work. They wanted to get better. And sure, it's good. And I had this conversation with a lot of young players to do your team practice, to do your team workouts. But what are you going to do to separate yourself? What are you going to do to get to that next level? And I always say you need to work harder than the person next to you, than the people in your league, the people in your province, you know, and so forth. And then if you look at your competition pool for those the fewer and fewer spots as you move higher in baseball, that's who you're working against at the same time. Now, we don't want it to become an I thing, and you got to dial it back to you're still working with your team, but your work ethic outside of what you do with your team is going to take you a long ways. And like I said, Kevin Nicholson, I use him as an example all the time to youth, that he would be out at the park hitting BP, taking ground balls every day. He taught himself how to switch hit. This guy put in more work, and I remember this is years ago, and remember these things about, you know, a young Kevin Nicholson, and he's a first-round draft pick. He's playing at University of Florida. He's playing in the big leagues, right? So I love what Baseball BC is doing. I love what Baseball Canada is doing in the development and and giving these opportunities to these athletes. And it's my encouragement in taking all this information today from all these fantastic speakers, but not only this information and how you can proceed, but take little snippets on, okay, what did this person say about their work ethic, or what they look for, or what can I do to get better, right? So it's compiling a ton of this information and then putting yourself, you know, putting it into your repertoire and creating your work ethic so that you leave nothing on the table. And when it's all said and done, when you look back on your career and you can say, I did everything I possibly could do to be the best player I could be, then you've succeeded. So we're getting close to Chris Pritchett coming on. Really looking forward to chatting with him. So we'll see. Should be clicking on here pretty soon, David. Any other questions from you, David?
I do have one, Aaron. What was your favorite baseball experience throughout your career? You've done so many things. I know I've been fortunate enough to join you and ride your coattails for one or two. I've heard some of the stories, but I don't think I've ever asked what's your most memorable experience.
You know, I get asked that quite a bit, and I will say my team, and this is going to sound like it's a plug for this, but my stuff with my playing with Baseball Canada, national team experiences, and then trickling down to my provincial team experiences. So one thing with pro ball is it becomes a job, right? And it's so easy to get caught up in the hustle bustle of that work, where I would say my greatest experience would have been 2004 in the Summer Olympic Games and in Athens, Greece, where this would have been 7 years into my professional career, and it got to be a game again, right? And it's the joy of playing a game, being surrounded by a bunch of like-minded, hard-nosed, dirty playing Canadians, and by dirty I mean getting dirty, not playing dirty. That I have so many fantastic memories of the travel, the Olympic Village, the pregame warm-up, the antics on the bench. Like, you could tell stories all day about that, but those were my favorite times in baseball because it was fun and it was a game. That's
great. One last one. We're waiting for Coach Pritch to join us here. You made a seamless transition, it appears, into the coaching ranks. Can you, I know we've got a bunch of coaches and parents on the line here today. Can you tell us why you are enjoying coaching as much as you are, and what made you explore that side of our sport.
I'm enjoying coaching because one thing about it, in a career, and as I said, a professional career becomes almost like work, right? So it becomes about you developing you being the best you can be, you hanging on to your job for that matter. It's a complete switch where now all my energies are invested in someone else. So I get to develop other athletes. I get to see other athletes progress. And, I've worked with kids in baseball as young as 8, 9, 10. I've had kids I've worked with for multiple years, and getting to see their progress and getting to see them create these opportunities for themselves, and seeing kids get scholarships, and then with women's national team, the relationships, and it's the development with these athletes, but the relationships as well, and seeing others succeed. That I always say I get more joy out of coaching and seeing these athletes succeed, seeing their victories, than I ever did with my own in my playing career. So I'm privileged and blessed to get to coach and to get to work with you guys at Baseball BC, to get to work with Baseball Canada. It's like my new dream come true.
That's excellent insight, Aaron. And trust me when I ask everyone to join me and share with you that the pleasure is all ours. We're grateful for your ongoing contribution and your time and commitment to the kids. I'm thrilled to hear that the joy comes from seeing others succeed and develop. That's really right in my personal sweet spot there. We want to make sure we're giving back and providing better opportunities than maybe we were provided. So for all you do, thanks very much. I do see Coach Pritchett here has joined us, so I'm going to get out of the way and turn it over to somebody that everybody's here to watch. Coach Pritchett.
All right.
Hello.
Coach Pritchett, how you doing?
Good. Thanks for having me on. How are you, Aaron?
Doing great, thank you.
All right.
Say,
we got the
Coach,
sunshine here.
Yeah, we got some sunshine here too. It's a nice change.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm going to introduce you. I'm going to brag about you a little bit. So bear with me.
All right.
Okay. So those of you that do not know, Chris Pritchett is the head coach at UBC Baseball. You have compiled a nice looking 130 win and 86 loss record with 3 bursts to the NAIA World Series. All right. Coach was coach of the year twice, 2015, 2019. So, and this is just the coaching stuff, and we could get into that coaching accolades even more, but back to your playing career, which is in looking back and reading through your career is a lot of fun for me to look through. So in UCLA, All-American, and set a single season record for hits at UCLA, which is very impressive. Second round draft pick by the California Angels, and major league debut September 1996. So we're definitely going to talk about your UBC program, recruiting and whatnot. But I hope at the end we have a little time, because I'd love to hear some stories of that of going back to that major league debut, that first at bat, or maybe some hitter or pitchers that really impressed you. But those are the stories I love hearing. But we're going to get through stuff that everyone wants to hear, and all these young aspiring athletes that are looking at your program. So any comments or thoughts before I get into some questions for you?
No, you can fire away. Thank you for saying those kind words. I think at the end of the day, what I'm most proud of is just not that I had some crazy good career. It's just allowed me to see all the levels and kind of experience. And I think what it does is it really helps identify and kind of talk on the same level of kids that are going through these things, trying to pick a college or deciding whether to go into the draft, or that kind of thing is like been there, done that, much like yourself, where we can now help these guys in an area that they just wouldn't know or have any experience at. So I think that's what a lot of times what our main job is just to help these kids.
Absolutely, that's fantastic. Coach, we got a lot of good young ball players up here, and I know you've seen that. And let's start at some recruiting, the recruiting process, and maybe what your recruiting process looks like, and what do you look for in these future recruits?
Yeah, I mean, what we look for. So this is an easy question and a hard question, Aaron, because the easy answer is we're just looking for really good players out there, like every coach that's out recruiting and seeing these guys play. But it's a lot more complicated than that. So I think that on one side, the easy explanation is, like I just said, we're going out and looking for good players that can help our team and can play at this level. On one hand, but the complicated version of that is that there's so many other factors. There's so many levels of baseball and at the college level that kids might fit in a different way. And then you add in the academic piece, the financial pieces, and it's a fit. And it's really hard for these kids to find that fit sometime. So for example, a kid like we've all seen Last Chance U and on Netflix, where that particular athlete, he's basically going down to play his sport. Education's not really a huge factor as far as getting in or really why they're there. He was pretty much need a diploma and a heartbeat. Mm-hmm. Whereas if you're recruiting from Harvard, for example, you're looking at some really geniuses in the classroom first, and then maybe second, you're looking at their athletic ability, for example. So it's really across the board. I think that's kind of one of the neat things about UBC is we're so well situated as far as a balanced athlete. Like a lot of the kids that end up at UBC are really committed in the classroom, and they're really committed on the field. So you've got a chance to play a high level of baseball, where a lot of our kids have draft aspirations, but they also are really good students and know that someday we're going to be done playing this game that we love, and they are really committed to getting a degree that's going to really help them when they're all done. So it's really a hard question to answer, and I think it gets back to us as the coaches and educators to just help these guys find that right fit, because when they do, it's a blast. College baseball is a lot of fun. Thinking about my times, you mentioned at UCLA, great friends that I made there, and a degree that I still use today. So it can be great. And then I've also heard stories that weren't so good, where guys didn't have the right fit and it was a bad experience. They come back and they're kind of having to regroup. So again, easy question and hard question, I think, to answer.
Yeah, definitely. And one of the things in with a coach and building a team, I already know your answer to this, but I'd love for you to share a little bit on character-wise, and building a team and bringing in athletes based on character traits. Can you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, no question. I think every year that I do this, I'm changing my recruiting philosophy as to, not that the criteria is different. You're still looking for talent and certain things from different positions, but at the end of the day, you got to have good teammates, because all the talent in the world with guys that don't get what it's like to commit and be accountable to not only themselves but a group is not good for your program. Yeah. I think I've learned that quickly, and it's a lot better experience for the player when they get here, when they're with a group of like-minded people that are taking care of each other. So that's one thing that I've learned over the last few years, is watching how they interact with their teammates, their coach, with their parents, and not just watching what's going on the field. And the other thing, it may sound simple, but finding guys that still want to get better, because you'd think everybody does, but I think a lot of kids, the end goal is either to get drafted or to sign at a Division I school, for example, and they're not really thinking about all the commitment to development once they get there. And kids that want to put in time every day and get better, a little bit better each day, we can help them. But the kids that just assume it's going to happen, and there's a lot of them that show well in the showcase and they can do certain things, but they don't have that desire to work, and it doesn't usually, they usually don't get to their ceiling, and they're usually not good teammates. So I'd say those two areas right now have become more towards the front of when we're recruiting, besides just looking at athletic ability.
Absolutely, and you know, with the quality of staff you have there, which maybe you could just briefly go over, you know, who you have on your staff, but you know, you have confidence in yourself and in your staff that I've got a character player. He's going to work his butt off for me, and I know we can develop him. So it's I love what you're doing up there, and on the playing side of things, and you know this in your pro career, and had a lot of different minor leagues and big league managers, that on the flip side is having a staff and a coach and a head coach that you want to go through a brick wall for. So I'll transition that to tell us about your coaches.
Yeah. Oh no, that's a really good point. So I'm lucky. You mentioned being coach of the year a couple of times. That basically is your assistant coaches of the year, because they're the ones that are often on the front lines, really making a difference. Sure, the head coach is involved, but really you're talking about your assistant coaches when those kind of awards get handed out. And I'm very blessed to have not only two amazing assistant coaches in Sammy Starr and Wayne Corness, the pitchers, but we have a whole host of characters that have come back from their playing days here, and Jeremy Newton, Mitch Hodge, that help with the pitching as well, they assist Wayne Corness, and Tyler Enns that works with our strength and conditioning, our outfielders, and Justin Orton, which really does a nice job assisting us with our hitters. So we have a group that is committed to helping these guys get better, are dedicated to it, and I give them all the credit, because without them, I don't know what I would do. On the immediate staff, you have Sammy Starr that had I think he played professional baseball at Baltimore for 5 years. So like we were talking about, guys that have been on both sides, on the pro and college side. He graduated from UBC. So he's been there and done that. And I would put he's got a great mind for the game, especially on the fielding side of it. I mean, he is a phenomenal infield coach. So when we see guys with athletic ability at the high school level with some hands and feet, we know that Sammy can take them and make them outstanding infielders. He's extremely organized and just an amazing piece to our coaching staff. On the pitching side, Wayne Corness has done an amazing job. Wayne was here when I first got here, so he was a holdover from the first staff that, look, I walked into a good situation here. This wasn't like a struggling program. It was already really good. And Wayno has a unique blend of old school experience and tact, the way he coaches, mixed with all of what's going on, like with all of us staying on the metrics and the new wave of technology that's coming out. He's blended it together and done a really nice job with the pitching staff. They just keep getting better each year. So you nailed it. I mean, if you want to get better, those guys that I've mentioned are going to help you get there.
That's awesome. Coach, I got a question from a viewer. What does a player need to do to get recognized by you and your staff? Videos, I know there's a lot of platforms online. Are your coaches looking at these? Send you an email? Start with that. I got a couple more, but if you can start with that, and we'll dive into that a little bit.
Yeah, this is another two-parter because of the current situation we're in with COVID-19 kind of wrecking all our coaches' ability to get out and see games and go to tournaments and events. Because normally, I would say you don't have to do much as a player, just play the game, because we'll find you, both teams from the States and obviously us being in Canada. But under the current situation, it's been really hard. And I really feel for this wave of recruits, because they just aren't given the same opportunities that, in the past. And this is going to be over someday and they'll be back to normal. But right now, we are relying on things that we haven't in the past. I mean, we've always looked at video, but now we're really breaking it down. So yes, if you can get good footage out to some coaches, And I mentioned kind of the new wave technology. I think if you're looking at a picture and you're trying to fill in some gaps besides just what we're seeing on video, since we can't watch live, and you're able to send a Rapsodo report with some different data under there, that helps. Normally I wouldn't care because I want to see it with my own eyes, but right now we are relying on things to try and piece together what this player is, and phone calls and Zoom meetings and lots of other things that we've never done before. So we're adapting on the fly.
Yeah.
But that would be my answer is yes. Normally not a big fan of, my inbox is full every day from people all over North America, but right now we're definitely, getting through those and taking a serious look at them. So the more information you can provide digitally this year, in this recruiting class, the more helpful it is. But in a normal year, you're going to get seen with all the perfect games events and T12 and tryouts, and we have a really good relationship with a lot of coaches across Canada. We're gonna find you if you're a good student and a good player. We're gonna we're gonna know who you are for most of the time.
Yeah, absolutely. At what age are you starting to look at players and really because it seems like it's getting younger and younger, when in our playing days, and you're getting recognized in the summer of your grade 12 year, it's grade 9 and 10, it seems, which it puts a lot of pressure on kids and parents. For you, how early are you looking, and what would you say to those kids and parents that are feeling that pressure really young?
Yeah, this is another one that's across the board. I can remember when I was scouting, and I remember sitting at a University of Oregon fall game, and I saw this kid that looked, I would say no older than 13 or 14 years old. And, someone said, oh, he's a shortstop or whatever. I'm like, okay, so I didn't even think, but he was on his recruiting trip. And I was like, goodness gracious, how in the world do you project what that kid's going to look like in 4 or 5 years? It was hard enough as a scout to take a 21-year-old and try to picture him in 4 or 5 years. So I know that those Division I guys are often, again, this is not COVID considered, they're usually 2 or 3 years ahead in their recruiting class. They're already working on 2024, for example, here on the 2021 class. I tried that at first just because I felt comfortable with my evaluations to a certain extent, but it's at UBC, it's just a little bit different. So we like to identify as early as we can, get them in the system so we can follow them, try to watch their progress. But we're going to sign guys year to year here. And the reason for that is we want kids to feel comfortable like UBC is a good fit for them. And if we identify them at 15 and UBC is the only school in the mix, and then by the time they're 18, Oregon State's knocking at the door, University of Texas, we don't want them to feel like they have to commit and go through that whole process. And we don't want to commit the funds to somebody that might end up somewhere else. So we'll watch and we'll identify as early as we can. I've taken video of little leaguers, I'm embarrassed to say, but I'm not talking to them. I'm not recruiting them. I'm not putting anything in their head. I'm just identifying who they are, get them in the system. We're more grade 11 and 12 guys trying to figure out that fit athletically and academically, and team that up with our needs on our roster, which can be a challenge, especially now trying to figure out who's going to be moving on when eligibility right now, due to seasons that have been lost, is so in flux right now. So it's a real challenge recruiting right now.
Yeah, I can imagine. And off of that, with obviously COVID and new rules, are you as actively recruiting now, or are you with your players that are falling under some of these rules? Is it kind of what I'm saying, is there fewer spots right now for younger athletes coming in? How's that looking?
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. So for example, we had a class coming in last March, roughly when COVID shut everything down, that was going to replace our guys that we figured there'd be 2 guys potentially in the draft, X amount of guys were going to graduate, and then we're going to move through that way. Once COVID hit, the seasons were all given back to those guys. The draft went from 40 rounds to 5, And all of a sudden, no one was leaving, but we had
Mhm.
12 to 14 kids coming in. So it just created this a little
Yeah.
bit of a log jam. And there's still some question like how this spring's going to play out. What are the rules going to be as far as eligibility goes? So it's tough. So a lot of kids that were, waiting for this year, their draft, or not draft, but their recruit year, there's not a lot of openings. A lot of guys that came
Mhm.
back, you're going to have an older group at the university, like the Division I level, like the University of Washington's and that ilk, are going to have some 24-year-old fifth year seniors that are really good players that weren't drafted, and they're going to come back. So some of those spots are not available.
Yeah.
And the finances are like the normal flow of scholarship money coming in, and being able to take it from one player leaving and throw it to the next guy. That's also kind of
Mhm.
a challenge right now, seeing where everybody's going to land. So tough times,
Yeah.
but we will figure this out eventually. But it is unprecedented. The regular flow and the system is all stopped right now, and it'll restart eventually. But
Yeah.
it's tough. Yeah.
You kind of answered the next question that came in. Does UBC offer scholarships? So sounds like you do. And like, what does that look like? What do you have full rides available? Or are you limited by numbers? How does that look?
Yeah. Well, we do have scholarships, and all of our scholarships that are given out are through privately raised, some donations from fundraisers. They don't come from UBC. So the good thing is that UBC, and again, this will be a challenge this year because some of the fundraisers, to be honest, they've been canceled. So we're having to pivot. In fact, we're having one this Wednesday night called Safe at Home, where we have Justin Morneau, Jeff Francis, and Mike Soroka on a Zoom call talking baseball for guys. So in a silent auction. So we've pivoted, but back to the scholarships, we've been able to give out $200,000 a year for the last 2 years, and it's just kept going up. And that's getting close to what's called fully funded. Fully funded would be where you have an equivalent of like 11.7 scholarships to give out, for example, and that would be around 220. So what Terry McKeag started 24 years ago till now, like is really amazing, and we're almost fully funded in a normal year. What that allows us to do is really compete with guys financially. So, for example, our scholarships might not sound as good as some. For example, a couple of years ago, we're neck and neck battling with in the game for a kid that was going to go to the University of Washington, and they were going to offer him a half scholarship, for example. And I know from signing a kid there that that's roughly about $25,000 US for an out-of-state kid, which is an amazing scholarship at the college level because they don't have a ton to go around. We offered him $5,000. Now, he wasn't impressed by that, but when you really break it down, for Canadian kids at UBC to get a degree that's roughly a Stanford level degree, and at Stanford you're going to pay about 80 grand US a year, is about 18.5 Canadian. So that's roughly about 14.5 Canadian for a kid to get a degree that is top of the line, top 25 in North America. So when we give him 5, they're only left with like 12 roughly Canadian, whereas this other kid still had 25 US to go, but it didn't sound as good. So
Yeah.
I think that's what gets confused sometimes, is that we do have scholarship money. We do rarely, in my time, we've never given out a full ride, but our starting pitchers and guys like that are getting a big chunk of their education paid for the degree they're getting. We rarely lose a recruit to finances. So we're very fortunate on that front.
That's fantastic. And that's exciting. The Soroka and Francis and Morneau, you got them. Geez, that's a compilation of some good baseball stories and good baseball experience for sure.
No, we're lucky. And they really stepped up. They didn't even hesitate to help us out. So we're very grateful here at UBC.
That's fantastic. So I got another question. Are there any other Canadian programs that are in NAIA or NCAA and play in the US?
No. I think we're the only university that goes down there and plays. Douglas Junior College here does play in the States in the NWAC, but the rest of the schools, to my knowledge, are affiliated with other teams in Canada and stay north of the border. I know Winnipeg at one point for a couple of years joined the NAI in either as an independent or a team up north, but they're no longer there. So I think we're the we're the last one standing, and it's actually pretty cool because when you would put a Canadian flag on your sleeve and you go down and you get to a regional, you feel like you're representing UBC. But I think these kids also feel a sense that they're sort of that team representing their country, which is pretty powerful, I think, sometimes.
Yeah, definitely. So you guys would, for some of the young players listening, obviously there's an appeal to playing down the state. So you at UBC, you get to play, obviously in Vancouver, but you're traveling down and playing in the States. What are maybe just some of the places you get to play, and even if you could touch a little bit on maybe some experiences at the World Series.
Well, we've been to the opening round. I'm still trying to get to that World Series. I think we have a really competitive team here that I'd like to think we could make a run at it, but that's yet to be seen. But we our conference takes us down to Oregon and Idaho, Washington, and we'll also, our non-conference schedule is probably something that we really work on. So if we wouldn't have had COVID this year, we actually had 8 Division I games that would have had 3-game series versus Oregon State that was going to take place at Okotoks. We had Seattle University on there, and we were also hosting University of San Francisco for a summer series that right when we're August 7th to the 11th or something. So all those got canceled. But we will go down and play the best teams in California. We want our guys to be challenged and feel like if they come here, and we'll play teams that will definitely be give them a chance to test their skill set and give scouts a really good gauge as to what they're looking at as well. Last year we were set to go to Georgia when the pandemic really shut everything down. So again, we've been very fortunate with our chances to travel. And that's regular season. The postseason stuff has taken us, again, we've gone to Georgia twice, to Arizona, California for regionals. We've been lucky how that goes. The World Series itself is in Lewiston, Idaho, and that's certainly the goal of every NAI program. That's our goal here at UBC, to be a team that's ranked in the top 20 annually and is threatening to go to that World Series every year. So that's what we're trying to do here, give the kids a chance to play at that high level and get their degree at the same time. And that's pretty what UBC is all about.
That's great. So we got just got a couple minutes left, and I really appreciate your time, but I got 2 questions. So we got about a minute each question. How many pro players from UBC?
I almost did this event from our batting cages, but then someone came in to hit. So, because they're all posted on that wall up there. I think we're around in the mid to upper 20s now, with obviously Jeff Francis being the most famous World Series Game 1 pitcher. But yeah, every year there's usually 1 to 3 players that are in that mix or being selected. So we're really proud of all the kids that come through here, whether they get their degree or they get that chance to play at the next level. But certainly we're balancing that ability to put those guys in pro ball and trying to win games at the college level. And we are equally committed to both sides, which is a challenge to stay in the middle there, but we're committed to giving those guys the looks, the development opportunities. We're not going to stymie their development just to win games. We want them to have that chance to play at the highest level and realize that dream. So we're extremely committed to that. And there's a long history of players that have been drafted out of here that we're very proud of.
That's awesome. Okay, our time's up. 1 question. Toughest big league pitcher you face?
Well, probably the most embarrassing at bat I've ever had was against Mariano Rivera. And My friend was actually catching. I shouldn't get him in trouble here, but it's just his only spring training, not during the year. But he throws that cutter that you can't see, of course. And so he told me, just, I'm a left-handed hitter and that ball runs in. And he said, look, as soon as he throws it, just pull your hands in as fast as you can. So Mariano let go, he threw it, and the ball just hit right above my knuckles and just spun right over in the on deck, or like not even just the other batter's box. So the bat broke in half. I went back, got a new bat, came back, and he goes, no, earlier, you got to really pull them in towards your front hip. The umpire's cracking up because they're trying to help me, so I got no chance. And so he throws it again, and it comes in, it breaks my bat again, and it spins a little bit farther, spun away just outside the batter's box. So I've had 2 pitches. I go get a third bat, walk back out. The catcher's in tears, the umpire's in tears. And he's like, as soon as he lets go, you're waiting way too long. Just throw your hands in as fast as you can. So he threw it, but this one went straight over the catcher's head. I swung as fast as I could as soon as he let go. And so I actually struck out, but the ball went to the backstop because it was nowhere near the catcher, and I made it to first base safe. But we could do that over and over again, and I would never put a ball in play off of that guy, I'm pretty sure. So yeah,
I think you and probably thousands of other big league hitters share the same
hit
sentiment.
righties. Yeah. Hit righties. Lefties have no chance. No chance.
Oh, awesome. Well, Coach, thanks so much.
Okay.
Yeah, Coach, thanks so much for your time.
Thank you.
Again, we got a great program going there, and look forward to seeing your continued success there.
Thanks for the kind words, Aaron. I'm glad to do it. And I think it's great what you guys are doing, giving these kids the information they need to make some good choices to help them move on. So thank you.
Absolutely. You bet.
Okay, guys, we'll see you later.
Yeah, take care, Coach.
Okay, bye-bye.
All right. We're shifting forward to Mr. Taylor Green.
Hey guys, how's it going?
Doing well. How are you doing?
Outstanding. Excited to be here.
Yeah, well, super excited to have you here. I got to chat with you a little bit before we got cut off prior to this, but I'm gonna fill the viewers in with a little bit about your story and how you got to where you are, and then we'll get into some questions.
Sounds great.
So those that do not know, Taylor Green was a draft pick for the Milwaukee Brewers in 2005. 2007, played for Team Canada World Cup. Also in 2007, pretty fun year for you. You were the Brewers Organization Player of the Year. Right, so I was looking at your numbers, some pretty impressive numbers too.
It was a great year.
Look at as well. You made your major league debut August 31, 2011. And what'd you do your first at bat?
No, I won't forget that one. Nice single to right field off Jake Westbrook.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Not many guys that get that first big league at bat, but to get a knock your first big league at bat, that's fantastic.
Yeah, absolutely.
So in 2016, you became a scout, and this is what we're gonna touch on. Of course, like kind of, if you've been watching the guys on here, I want to get back to some stories at the end. So we're going to get through the meat and potatoes of things, and with scouting and what our viewers, I have some questions and they'll pick your brain as well. But I want to get back to some stories. I love hearing those stories.
Everybody loves the stories.
Yeah, for sure. So on you, tell us a little bit about your path to the big leagues. Coming from BC, playing PBL. I'm jumping ahead. I want to hear a little more about you, but we're going to get into the scouting. But this plays into your path.
Absolutely. My story started probably similar to a lot of the viewers right now. Grade 10, played for the Parksville Royals for Dave Wallace. He was the manager at the time. Fought for playing time. There was a lot of we had college age players in the league at that time. I'm not quite sure on the rules now, but at that time there was 4 infielders, and I had a battle for playing time. And it was, I learned, and you learn how to compete, and, deal with some failure. And it was just a tremendous experience throughout my 3 years with Parksville. one of my most memorable moments there was with the tryouts for Team BC. In grade 11, it was just an incredible tryout. We had a really strong team. We had, I think we had three future big leaguers on that team: Mike Saunders, Renee Tassoni, and a handful of other really, really good players. Jordan Leonardton, just to name a few of them. But making that Team BC was just an incredible experience. The tryouts were up in Oliver. From there, I went down to Cypress College, to a junior college in California. I signed with a Division I university, actually out of high school, Stetson University down in Florida. I decided to go to Cypress. I really, really wanted to play professional baseball. That was my goal. Went to Cypress, lucky enough, had a great year, was drafted. I ended up not signing. They actually tried to sign me as a catcher. I was unsure of what that would look like. I've never caught before in my life. I ended up going back to Cypress College. And then I signed to go to Oregon State University with my letter of intent. I went on the visit. I loved everything about the campus and, West Coast and the whole thing. And then I ended up turning them down and signing with Milwaukee, going to Helena, Montana. And that was quite an experience. I had a pretty good first season. But I ended the year, it was something like 0 for 40 or 1 for 42. And when you only get 200 plate appearances in a short season, it really skews your number, especially being a 25th round pick. You feel some pressure playing against some of these, the first, second round picks. You worry about your roster spot, to be honest. From there, showed up in spring training, battled my butt off, won a spot to go to West Virginia. That was low A, and you mentioned that was the year 2007, and that was really it was probably one of the turning points in my life, to be honest. That whole year, just an outstanding year. Won Player of the Year, and then got to play with Greg Hamilton, I believe, is coming on next, through a trip through Australia and Taiwan. And it's just an incredible experience, being able to represent your country. It's probably the coolest thing I've ever done. Yeah. But from there, I just consistently worked my way up, just dealt with adversity like every player, like yourself, Aaron, that everybody else does, in order to get to the major leagues. Made my major league debut. It was actually quite an interesting story. My parents flew in. I got called up, I think, a few days before that. And I didn't get in the game. And then sure enough, we were going on the road. My parents were flying home, and I was lucky enough to I got one at bat and I got a hit, and then they left. So it was, just a tremendous moment. Ended up going on the playoff roster that year as well. We ended up losing to the Cardinals in the NLCS. I had a couple pinch hit at bats, and that was quite a moment. Wow. But we can talk about that later. From there, I was up and down the next year, and then the following year I came into camp. I played for Greg and Ernie Witt with the World Baseball Classic team in Arizona, and then probably my third practice back in big league camp, I was hopeful to make the team right out of camp. We had some injuries, so it was looking pretty good. But then I went, unfortunately, down with my hip injury, and I just couldn't quite recover to my same peak abilities as I was before. Not to make any excuses, I just wasn't as good. And then from there, that's when I transitioned into scouting. I was very, very fortunate. At the time, Doug Melvin and Gordash, fellow Canadians, were the GM and assistant GM of the Brewers. At that time, we knew Doug and Gord were transitioning out of the role, and we were going to hire a new kind of analytically driven, not to say Doug and Gord weren't, but just a new GM and assistant GM. They gave me great advice, offered me a job as a pro scout, and it was split between coverage in Arizona and the Pacific Northwest, which is where I split my time. We lived in Arizona, we lived on the island, so it was a perfect opportunity. I was only 27 or 28 years old. Really hard to hang up the spikes at that point. It's kind of right in the middle of your prime. So it was a really, really tough decision for me. I actually said I need some time to think about it. I got to go play with Greg Hamilton again over in Taiwan it was the World Cup, I believe is what it was called. And at the end of that, I just knew, I knew how I recovered, and how my hip recovered. I just couldn't put up with the stresses of baseball every day. You know, if I could only do 3 days a week, I could probably do it, but I just knew physically I couldn't handle 7 days a week anymore. And that's when I said, yep, I'm doing it. I'm going to transition into scouting. Stop me if I'm going too long-winded here. I apologize.
No, absolutely.
So then my career path on the scouting side, I've honestly felt it's been even more interesting. I mean, maybe not more interesting, but you know, it's quite a different challenge for me. And my first year of pro scouting, you learn a ton, the ins and outs of, you know, what is going on, you know, what you're looking for. And this is just, it was specifically with professional players. And then what happened was my boss at the time, Zach Manassian, who's now, I believe, the assistant GM of the San Francisco Giants, he was moving on to a different role, a pro scouting supervisor, basically meaning you ran the pro scouting department. The opening came up. I interviewed for it with our new GM and assistant GM at the time, David Stearns and Matt Arnold. I don't know who I tricked, but I ended up getting the job. And from there, I just kind of kept working my way up. My jobs changed every year. It's transitioned from just strictly pro scouting to overseeing pro scouting to, you know, being very involved in draft evaluation to all domestic stuff to now it encompasses all three scouting areas, which is amateur, domestic, you know, US, Canada, draft, international, where I spend most of my focus because that market is always open, and that's Latin America and Asia. And then the third area is professional scouting, which is, you know, major league players right down to, you know, players who played for the Vancouver Canadians in rookie ball. And so that's basically my story. And I'm just so thankful of all the different opportunities that this great game has provided me with. I just love it.
Wow, that's incredible. So you're going to give us a lot of insight, and a lot of viewers got to have some questions. So we got certainly a bunch of young aspiring ball players. We have a scout on here. What are you looking for in these young players?
Yeah, I mean, simply put, the easiest way that I always explain this question, we're looking for good baseball players. I mean, I know that sounds, it's very vague, but at the bottom line, for position players, we're just looking for good baseball players. And, you know, the way we go about determining, you know, who is a good baseball player, we have always done it. Scouts have always done it. We look at the 5 tools, hitting ability, power, running speed, defense, and arm strength. Now, all 5 of those tools, it's hard to come across a 5-tool player. And all of those 5 tools aren't weighed the same either. Like hitting ability is of the utmost importance, but the real thing, like, of course, we have to evaluate all 5 of your tools, and project, if you're a high school player, project how they will be at your peak physicality with, you know, 24, 25, 26 years old. And compare them to, or compare you to a major league player, which, you know, it's a pretty high standard. These being a major league player, they're incredible athletes, incredible in all of those phases. But to be honest, the real stuff that we look for isn't even on the field. It's how the player goes about his business. It's his makeup and it's his instincts. And in my opinion, it's his determination. It's a hard thing to see sometimes as a scout. And that's why I really believe in, you have to get to know the player. Our area scouts do a great job of that. Throughout the industry, they should be doing a great job of that, at least. Getting to know the player, getting to know the family, what makes the player tick. Because ultimately, no matter how good you are in high school, you're not in baseball, you're not good enough to go right to the major leagues. You're going to have to get better. And that's why I put so much emphasis on determination, just baseball instincts. And, you know, we call it the grind factor, to be honest. And that is just, it's so important, because you're going to deal with so much adversity throughout your career that you just have to have it. You have to have it. Circling back to pitchers, what we look for, stuff, your fastball. Well, how does it project as? Major league average fastball this year for a starting pitcher was over 93 miles an hour average. Relievers, it's about a mile an hour harder than that. We give before and after grades on all of your pitches, fastball, changeup, slider. We try and project what you're going to throw at your peak years. And we determine that by, how the ball comes out of your hand, how your body physically projects, as well as your command. But once again, it all comes back to, at least my opinion, your instincts, your determination, your willingness to work hard, and your willingness to deal with adversity. And that it's a hard thing to see as a scout sometimes, but it really makes a huge difference in the player's career.
Absolutely. It's interesting now with you talk about pitchers and I would say being a complete pitcher, there's a lot of emphasis on velocity, and kids are putting themselves at risk, and just working velocity, weighted balls, and not developing the other aspects of their game. So it's really neat to hear you say that. And Coach Pritchett prior to you was talking about the character of athletes as well. So it's just great to hear. You talked about the 5 tools. Like specifically, how do you, this is more of an informative question, how are these graded?
They're graded multiple different ways. Our organization, we're very analytically driven. So we try and take any question that we can out of it where there's kind of gray area. But it basically, I'll just go through all 5 for you. The hitting ability tool, perhaps maybe the most important. The way we determine that is honestly based on performance, makes up a big part of that. That's swing and miss in the zone from a statistical standpoint. And then the scouting, projection, and evaluation ability to see, okay, how does this kid control the barrel? His barrel control, his overall contact ability, his instincts, his timing, just our general feeling of how much contact he's going to make, and then combine it with their performance. And that kind of gives us our hitting ability grade. For future power projection, that one's a bit more simple. How far and hard can you hit the ball? Before, now with TrackMan and all these different exit velocity measurements, we can be more granular with it. We can tell exactly, okay, he hit the ball, 96.2 miles an hour. But that only tells us now. We need to know what's going to happen in the future. And we determine that by, your physicality. Are you going to get stronger? Are you willing to work to get stronger? All that type of stuff. Arm strength, similar thing. We're a lot of teams are gunning players now. They gun position players, determine your arm strength. If not, it's position by position. A lot of outfielders throwing the ball over 90 miles an hour in the big leagues now. From shortstop position, we want to see the strong backspin carry from deep in the 6 hole from a plant. Catchers, we want to see, pop time sub 2.0. And then run speed, we, for the most part on the amateur level, we're still doing 60-yard dashes. We've tried to limit that down a bit to 30-yard or 40-yard dashes, just because it might be a more useful measurement, home to first measurements, but that's basically how we determine the 5 tools.
Okay. Now, how does a player get recognized? Obviously, on the professional level, you guys do a really good job in, like you said, scouring not only the country, but Latin America and whatnot. So for our players up in Canada, and maybe some of these players that are tucked away in little towns that, like, I want to get noticed too. Like, how can they get noticed? Is there something they can do on their end? And I know you guys are covering it on your end too, but they don't want to go unnoticed.
Absolutely. And what I always go back to, if you perform and you just be good at baseball, chances are somebody's going to find you. And especially with all the new technologies, if we see something that is above average, it pops above the average, with all the reach of video, whether that's players sending an area scout video or they post something on Twitter. Like, for example, we signed a kid from China, literally from Beijing, China. He put a video on the Pitching Ninja Twitter page, and we signed him 3 days later. Wow. It's if you're doing something that a professional team, needs or wants, or it's above average at a major league level, it's a very, very good chance we will find you. What I would say in terms of making yourself stand out, say you're at a tryout or just on the field, your regular high school game, you got to get noticed somehow. And to me, the best way to do it is just work harder than everybody, hustle on and off the field, first one in and out of the dugout, stuff like that. You might not get noticed the first time, but after the second time, the third time, maybe that scout starts, oh, who's that guy always hustling out there? And next thing you know, you hit a home run, you hit a double, you make a good play on defense, you steal a couple bases, couple good dirt ball reads. All of a sudden, oh boy, now we got a player, and they'll focus. Every scout loves finding kind of that diamond in the rough. Maybe not the big guy. They like finding that guy who nobody else is really on. So I would say, honestly, just hustle and energy, positive energy, and confidence. I mean, if you're confident on the field, you stand out. You just do.
Absolutely. So there's the next question is gonna kind of take two paths. You mentioned that you found a player through Twitter. So first question with that is, how active as an organization for or you specifically, like, are you checking these social media accounts?
Yeah, we have people in our organization that do that. Yes. It's more so on the international side because players are immediately available. It's the way that happened. You see it a lot in Latin America. A lot of these, because there's so many players there and they're so young. We see a lot of their agents, posting all sorts of stuff on Twitter. So we have to follow them because, a pitcher's got a 3,000 spin rate curveball, or he's, throws 97. We don't know if he throws strikes, but it's an above average tool. We got to do our due diligence. So we have people in the office who are all over that. And then that, then it gets surfaced up to me. It might go through our area guys. They might ask the area guy, okay, what do you got on this guy? And he might probably 95% of the time says, yeah, he throws 95 miles an hour, but he can't hit the backstop. So then we just leave it alone. But it is a real thing. Players are getting signed off that. Usually a bit more experienced players, but it's a new time, a lot different than when I was coming up, that's for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And that, again, what you just said reiterates your point that, yeah, he throws 95, but he can't throw a strike. So you're looking for complete players.
Yeah, it really is. Especially with minor league has contracted over the last couple of years and it's probably going to continue to do so. It's you have to be able to show up and compete right away. There's just too many good players coming from UBC or Venezuela or wherever. It's just really, really hard. So you have to have the tools and you have to be able to compete basically on day one at this point.
Awesome. So the second social media question, and you mentioned earlier in our conversation that not only are you looking for players that can play the game, but character things. So let's say if you're interested in a player, and he just popped some good numbers, he's caught my attention. Do you guys go to, if you're looking to draft a player, do you go to their social media and do you just say, oh, what type of kid is this? Like, what are we getting into? Are you checking those things as well?
Absolutely, no doubt about it. Our goal and my job as a assistant director of scouting is to try and beat the other 29 organizations, and especially with how much emphasis we put on makeup and just personality. That's one of the easiest ways to kind of determine the public information, and it absolutely gets searched, and it's only going to continue to get searched more and more. Without a doubt.
Okay, I got a question here from a viewer. I would say, you can take this wherever you want. It says, what stat matters the most for metrics like Rapsodo?
That's a good question. I would probably say for something like Rapsodo, it would be exit velocity. That's probably the main purpose behind, technology like that is just to measure how hard you're hitting the ball. Yes, there's a ton of outstanding information on Rapsodo devices or TrackMan or whatever piece of technology you use, blast sensor, whatever it is. For that specific question, I would probably say exit velocity, unless you're really focusing on something in particular, like you're trying to increase. I know these terms, I mean, launch angles and certain stuff like this. I mean, there is a lot of good that comes from it. By no means is that the only thing that makes you a good hitter. I don't want my message to be misconstrued or anything like that.
Of course.
But for that, it is extremely valuable. Exit velocities, launch angles. It also has pitch selection types, which shows you, okay, how well you're hitting the inside pitch, how hard you hit the outside pitch. We use it for all types of really granular stuff at the pro level. And honestly, amateurs could probably benefit from it as well. No doubt about it, at least from an exit velocity standpoint.
Fantastic. So another question came in. Should a player, coach, or parent reach out to a scout personally?
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time. It happens all the time. I must probably get between 5 and 10 or, say 5 emails a day from players, former pro players, college players wanting to get into pro baseball, or college students wanting to get into scouting. I get probably 5, 6, 7 different emails a day from players that want to get in the game in some capacity or others. Most of the time playing, sometimes into the front office side of it as well. Yeah.
So a lot of options in baseball, and you're showing that, right, with your playing, with your scouting, and that's just a beautiful game for all those options. Yeah. Now we only got 3 minutes left. There's one more question that came in, and then I got a personal question for you. What is an associate scout, and what do they do?
An associate scout, they cover an area. They are responsible for, covering a specific area, usually a smaller area. Like they're, how do I say it the best way? Like an area scout would cover a province or a state or multiple. An associate scout would help out the area scout kind of on the totem pole. He would be below and help, help inform the area scout of who is a good player in the area, is what I would say. Yeah.
Okay. So a couple questions about you, some fun questions. Your first big league at bat was a hit. I know the answer is yes. Do you remember your first big league home run? But can you tell us a story about that first big league home run?
First big league home run. Oh man, I was down on the ground. I fouled the ball off my shin. Carlos Marmol had a nasty slider, and he kept throwing it. I ripped 2 right off my shin. I'm down on the ground. I can barely run, and then he hung one, and I got it. And I don't even remember running the bases. I remember watching it go, but I don't remember running the bases. And just an incredible moment.
Did you know it was gone, or were you just sprinting full speed out of the box?
I knew it was gone, but I still sprinted full speed. Like it was, I didn't enjoy it one bit. I don't know. I was in like you go in panic mode almost.
Who's the toughest pitcher you faced, big league or minor league?
Yeah, I was a left-handed hitter. Aroldis Chapman. Aroldis Chapman's got to be the toughest. I faced him when he was with the Reds. And he was, 104 and wild and mean. I mean, it's not the guy you want to face. Kershaw, he's up there. That was back when he was 95, 96 with his big hammer. I mean, he was a really tough at bat. Right-hander, probably Strasburg, peak Strasburg, or Scherzer, one of those two, I would say.
So some pretty big names that you got to step into the box with. That's amazing.
Yeah, Roy Halladay was my favorite at bat, though. I got to face him with the Phillies, and that was most memorable at bat I've ever had, for sure, because he was a hero of mine growing up.
That's awesome. You know what, Taylor, this has been awesome. Your time is up. we could sit and listen to your stories for hours, but I just can't thank you enough for your time and all your insight. And it's certainly going to make a difference and help out, all our young aspiring athletes.
What you guys are doing is outstanding. Thanks very much, Aaron. I hope everybody realizes all the work you're putting in, and it's just tremendous. Really good.
That's fantastic. Well, thanks again, and enjoy your weekend.
Right on. Hey, Greg.
Hey, great.
All right. Have a good one, guys.
Holidays.
Thank you. Greg, how you doing?
Great. Aaron, yourself?
Oh, good. It's been a while.
I say it has been a while. I was just thinking, I think the last time we shared some smiles and then some heartbreak in 04 in the Olympic Games.
Oh, yeah. One of the, I was asked the question earlier, my memorable moments, and that tops them all in baseball. So, Greg, welcome to the show. And I'm going to just give a brief rundown for those that may not know who you are, but that's probably hard to do if you're a baseball player in Canada. But Greg Hamilton is the general manager of Team Canada, head coach of the junior national team. You've been with Baseball Canada. We're dating ourselves. You said 2004, and it's been much more time before that as well. Just a huge part of the development of that program. A couple of maybe unknown facts is that you played baseball at Princeton many years ago. Ivy League champs, 1991. Sorry to date that, but that's pretty awesome. Pitching coach and GM in France, and a pretty amazing player came out of that time there as a coach in France.
Yeah, actually, I just spoke with him the other day. It's been a long time, but that was a special moment. Jeff Zimmerman, one of the super guy that certainly didn't do it the easy way for guys that Greeny, I'm sure, touched on, that had to work real hard, and he was one of them. But just a great story, super person.
Just a high character person, great story, and I got the privilege of playing with him in the big leagues with Texas, and he took me under his wing, even though we're both Canadians, but that was just him. He took me under his wing, and just an amazing guy. 2004, 2008 Olympics, you got to participate in, and at the end we're going to go through some questions about national team, about our young Canadian athletes and their path there, but it'll be fun. I'd love to at the end get into some of your stories because I know you have a ton over the years. So again, we've got a bunch of young athletes on here, and as far as I know, every young baseball player has a dream to play on Canadian national team and junior national team. So what are you looking for your junior national team players?
I think, obviously the talent variable is important. You always say you go watch players play, and the talent tends to step out, or you're able to see that piece of it. And, you also look for makeup and character, but I think certainly with the junior program, we're looking for players that, that eventually can catch up to the speed of the game at a much higher level. I think obviously, Aaron, you've done that and lived through it from start to finish at all levels of the game. And one of the things that changes certainly is not the distances and any of that nature. It's just the speed of the game. Guys throw harder. They hit the ball harder. Things happen faster, and you have to be able to obviously catch up to that eventually. So, we watch 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, and we try to envision what they can be, going forward. And we're taking them at in our case at 15 and 16, and we're putting them into an extended pro environment or an instructional league environment where, they're going to play. If they start at 15 in the junior program, they're going to play probably 100+ games by the time they get to 18, actually probably 150 games against pro competition. So from going from, really good provincial leagues, which they are, to facing, professional pitchers that are of instructional league caliber and extended pros. And it's a big eye opener. And, we're not looking for guys necessarily to have the best stats. We're looking for guys that have the ability to play up.
Absolutely. And one thing I know I've experienced is the camaraderie on our Canadian teams. It's different. It's different from other countries. And you touched on, you just said character things. And obviously talent, we're looking for talent as coaches. And could you expand a little bit on the character side of things? I think this is an important message to get across to our young athletes, that it's not just about numbers you put up, but who you are on and as well off the field.
Absolutely. I think, from a scouting perspective and those that do it, we always like to get there early. We like to get there to watch an in and out, but, I like to get there to watch, see how players interact, how they move around, to see just basically how they are when, when the lights aren't on and when the game hasn't started, and how they prepare and how they take BP, how they take an in and out, how they interact with their teammates, how they interact with coaches. Do they give you the perception that they want to be there, or that it's a chore, or it's a little bit too much, or that there's other reasons why they're at the field? You just like to see, a lot of the sort of little things that ultimately will go into allowing a player to embrace challenges, deal with adversity and failure that definitely is going to come when you take them out of their comfort zone and put them into an environment where they're going to fail. I mean, they're going to struggle and they're going to probably think for brief periods of times when they start, that they can never do it. I mean, they're going to see a slider that they never thought existed, and they're going to see a 90-mile-an-hour fastball that usually worked for them when they got all amped up and tried to throw it by somebody and they had success with. They're going to see that thing get turned around like they've never seen it get turned around, and wonder whether or not they could ever get somebody like that, or if they could handle them physically in that manner. So when those moments happen, you kind of look inside and you got to really kind of get to work, and you've got to believe in yourself, and I always say you got to be able to find a way to separate yourself from a lot of people and a lot of players, and deal with that adversity piece. So it's incredibly important. The word grinder comes out, as we all know. He's a grinder, and I always say some of the names that you would know. I mean, Stubby Clapp, you had one of them on here before. Greeny. I mean, these guys were grinders, and the saying you're a grinder is one thing. Saying you're a grinder when you're at home and mom's making you 3 comfortable meals a day, and you're in your comfort zone, and the sun's shining, the grass is green, the sky's blue. How are you when you're you're into an environment where you're really struggling, and a slump might be defined by 2 straight weeks or even longer, and you're really having a tough time, and can you deal with that? Can you handle that? Do you have a love of the game? I mean, you want to play, because some days that's all you have is the fact that you really want to play. Other than that, there's not much else going your way. So you've got to really want to do it, and you've got to have that makeup and that character and that grit.
Absolutely. It's funny you said the word grinder, and Stubby is the first player that came to mind for me as well.
Absolutely.
He just epitomizes hard work and grinding. You said a key word that I'd like you to kind of touch on it in 2 respects, and the word was failure. First, as a coach, on the coaching side of things, we know baseball is a game of failure. Now, how do we teach that not only is failure part of baseball, but it's okay, and that we're going to rebound, we're going to learn from that? So from the coaching side, could you speak on that a little bit?
Yeah, I think one of the things that we try to do, and you've touched on sort of that national team piece being a family, and I'm really, really thankful for that. Simply, I'm the caretaker of that family, and that's how I look at it. There's people before me, and there'll be people after me. But one of the greatest things that really allows us to kind of connect with young players is the fact that we have many of our alumni, many of our professional alumni that come along as coaches, and they give of their experiences. And when you're getting the likes of a Jeff Francis and a Justin Morneau and a Peter Orr, and the list goes on and on, that they're on your coaching staff. I mean, these are people that have gone through experiences and lived through times, and they connect with the program because they've been in it. They also connect with the journey because they've lived it. In many cases through collegiate baseball and into professional baseball, and then up to the highest levels. So, just kind of letting players know that, it may seem like in this conversation, Mike Soroka is a veteran, but in the context of the junior program, he's a veteran, and he's somebody that young pitchers can connect with. So, letting them know that somebody of that level was once in the same spot as they were and failed, and struggled, and that there was a time when Adam Lowen had an inning rolled in the instructional league when he first started out and stood out in the mound by himself because he wasn't quite sure what was happening. There wasn't 3 out, and it was time to move on from that inning because there wasn't going to be 3 out for a while unless we got him out of there. So it's just, I think, letting them know that there are some really, really good players that they would identify with that have experienced that process and lived through it themselves and have failed in the same environment that they're experiencing failure in, and have ultimately rebounded from that and achieved. And I think, the other thing is letting them know why you've picked them and why they're there. I think that's important in all contexts, whether it be a national junior program, whether it be a young player starting out in professional baseball, because, the people that are supposedly the S's of the world that are evaluating them, just reinforcing the fact that, hey, you're here for a reason. You've got quick hands and you've got the ability to catch up to this level of pitching. It's just, we have to clean some things up in your approach swing wise, because you can't really get away with it here because of the level of play you're facing. And you've got a great arm, but you do need a secondary pitch, and you do need to throw it somewhere other than right down the middle at 90 miles an hour, because at this level, that's going to be problematic. But boy, oh boy, you have the prerequisite skills and you have the ability to succeed here. And part of that success or succeeding is simply dealing with the adversity and failure that it's just a reality, and not emphasizing performance and winning on the front end. I think that's a really tough thing for any players at any level, but for especially young developing players, when that their performance and success ratio is going to be pretty small, and they're going to experience a ton more failure simply because of where they are relative to who they're playing against, is to let them know it's okay. I mean, I think if we looked at our records with the junior program over the years, I always say, the program's 95% developmental and 5% performance when we get to a world tournament. So, we're playing instructional league teams and extended teams. If we're winning most of those games, then I think there's some pro organizations that probably would be reflecting internally as to why that's happening, and in a lot of those games. So it's okay. That's what development is.
Perfect. Well, you answered that from both the coach's side and the player's side, that's fantastic. How does a player get recognized for junior national team?
In a number of ways. I always say that we're fortunate in that the program has expanded to the point where it's not just a camp and then a world tournament, whether it be a world qualifier or a world championship. It's become a year-round program where we have an instructional league for 2 weeks in October. We have a spring training program in March for 2 weeks against pro competition. We have an extended spring training in April for 2 weeks, and we have a Dominican Summer League program annually in May, where we play in the DSL for basically 2 weeks and double up games every second day. We play 18 innings down there every second day. So it's kind of a continuum. So the front end would be the instructional league, where we bring in 32 to 34 players, and the process kind of works itself through those 4 basic trips. And, we're always tweaking the roster each successive trip, and, plus or minus a few players here and there. And guys sometimes come in and out as well. They'll make a trip, and, maybe it's a little bit too much at that time, and they just need to go back and work on some specific things, and need to kind of get outside of that program again in order to do it, because it's just a little much right now. And they oftentimes come back in down the road, and once they've cleaned up a few things, or just, created a little better understanding where they need to be. So in terms of ID, strict ID, obviously, British Columbia, the Premier League is a great source of talent all the way back to your days. And, date my days, yours are getting dated too. We're both on the same ship. So. But, that league remains one of the best in the country, if not the best. And it's certainly a focal point when we're looking for players for the junior program, and have great relationships, thankfully, with the coaches in those programs. And we do the same thing across the country in Quebec and Ontario and BC. And, you look at a couple, profile tournaments, the Baseball Canada Cup being one, which is, a combination of the top 17-year-olds in each province. And that happens annually each summer. So we're obviously there watching that tournament. We watch now, which is called Tournament 12, which is the Blue Jay Roberto Alomar tournament each fall, and at the Rogers Center, and that the critical mass of players from across the country. So those are 2, major events that we would scout and look for players, and kind of invite players, in the front end. But it's continually a process where we're, directly looking at players. And, as Greeny would say, I think the question got asked, is it okay for a parent and or a coach to reach out to a scout with, some information on a player, whether it be their own or another player? And I encourage that all the time. That's, I can give you many instances where I've got an email or a video shoot from a parent, and, we're all parents in certain contexts, but still, hey, you're going to look. And if that's interesting and that person has potentially the talent, you're going to follow it up. So I've always encouraged that. I get it from coaches, I get it from scouts. In the scouting world, we sort of work hand in hand. The national program is non-threatening in the context of being a competitor to professional baseball. So I feel very fortunate that we have a large network, and I certainly have an ability to reach out and communicate with scouts that cover the country as well, and are more than happy to pass on names that they've seen at workouts or tryout camps and things of that nature. So it's an extended network that's very valuable.
Perfect. That was the next question that was coming in is, the the athlete that is from the small town that might not be in these higher profile leagues, can they reach out? Can they promote themselves, showcase themselves to you per se? So you answered that question, and with the technology and what we're capable of doing now, it's no one's going to get overlooked, and especially with how hard you guys are working to identify and develop players. So that's great. We got another question that came in, and it says, what's going to happen with the junior national team with COVID and with the border closures and quarantine and whatnot? How does that look moving forward? I know it's hard to really predict that, but maybe what are you doing now to do your best to continue to develop that program?
Well, we're trying to obviously get about 5 plans on the go, which are kind of outside our control. So we shut down like everybody else at the end of March. We were actually down in Florida and had our spring training program going on in St. Pete, and we played the Blue Jays split squad game, and then we were supposed to play the Yankees and Tigers for our final 2 games, and the baseball world shut down right in front of us, and those games were canceled. We inter-squadded and came back home, so we haven't done a thing really in terms of being together or traveling with the junior team. Everything through 2020 is pretty much shut down from the perspective of being together, but I have had the opportunity to get out a little bit. Obviously, looked at a lot of video in the last while because that's kind of the way of the world right now. A lot of video being sent in. We're in the process of building out a depth chart that, from a junior perspective, would be the senior class would be 03s, and the underclass would be 03 or 04s and 05s. So trying to build out a real depth chart of players in those 3 groups, and looking to hopefully get going with our extended trip in West Palm Beach in late April. I think that's when we're hoping to kind of get a roster together and actually get going again and get playing. We were looking at March, but there's just so much uncertainty, pro club uncertainty with contraction and minor league players that haven't been seen by their own employers for a year. And I just thought for us to jump in the middle of that uncertainty and that, all those challenges that the pro teams are facing, it's probably not the best environment for us to jump into the middle of. So we're hoping to go in West Palm in late April and then follow that up in the Dominican in May. And we've got a world qualifier was supposed to happen in Santa Cruz, Mexico. So we're waiting for that. And the World Juniors supposedly late August, early September in Bradenton, Sarasota. It may get pushed back, but that's the wish list and the ideal, and we all wait and see on a vaccine and other things.
I know it's crazy times. I know us as coaches and players as well. Just can't wait to get back on the field.
Absolutely.
Play the game we love. It's tough. A couple more. There's actually quite a few really good questions coming in. How old does a player need to be to play on the junior national team?
There's no floor, so there's a ceiling. It's 18 and it's a calendar year. So I know there's a lot of traveling teams that kind of put together their high school rosters based on the U.S. Birth date, which would give kids sort of that 18 and a half years of eligibility. But ours would be, the last year of eligibility in this cycle would be 2003. So you have to be 18 in the calendar year, and then you age out after that. But I think the youngest player we ever had actually is a player that didn't get to the big leagues, but he had a long minor league career and had just finished after about 13 or 14 years. It was a left-handed pitcher named Evan Grills. Yeah. And, Evan was real advanced at 13, turning 14, if you can believe it. He really was, and kind of questioned my sanity and our sanity, and really didn't want to go there at all. But he was well beyond his years, and you kind of go into makeup, and I always say that's that makeup that helps you and doesn't get in your own way. The makeup comes in many shapes and forms, and in clubhouses, which you've been in many. There's no one defined makeup that allows you to succeed. It's the one that allows your best traits to be exhibited and not get in your own way. You're not too serious where it hurts you, and you're not too laid back where it gets you. And you know when to be serious and when not to be. So he was just really advanced for his age, and so we had him in at 14 years old. Josh Naylor was very young; he was 14. You know, remember we were going to the World Championships, and we had a group of young kids that we were kind of looking at. We were playing an exhibition game on the way to flying overseas, and we are doing it in Toronto. And he was a Bantam at the time, and he was in that game. And we think we ran out 3 straight pitchers, and every one of them he turned around. So we turned him around quickly. He had no passport, and we got him on a plane at 14 years old, and he was hitting in the middle of the lineup against the United States at 14.
Wow.
15. So yeah, you know, again, you want to make sure that you're not hurting a player, you know, that
Absolutely.
it's not too fast and it's too much. So there are those rare exceptions. I would say the average age, to be honest with you, would be, you know, getting in around probably 17.
Yeah.
You know, those 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, but you know, they're named Lori and, you know, and a lot of different names that were really, really advanced for their ages.
Yeah. The next question came in. I know Coach Pritchett and Taylor Green are obviously chatting about the sports science and side of things. So this question is asking that many organizations, sports or baseball organizations at any level, I guess, are using sports science and technology in their program. How are you integrating these into your program?
We're doing the best we can do. Our situation is, it's obviously, we don't have the continuum that a professional baseball organization would have. So, I mean, obviously the value of stats, I mean, they're invaluable and you can always use them, but sample size is huge, right? The sample size has a lot to do with how you utilize and effectively utilize stats throughout. So from our perspective, obviously videos in there. We look at stats with players, but those stats vary so dramatically depending on who they're playing for, what age they're at. You know, even in our environment, when they come, I mean, who did you face on a given trip? I mean, you may be facing a big leaguer on rehab versus facing an extended kid or a Dominican Summer League kid, and they're dramatically different, you know, different looks and that sort of stuff. So we use them. We factored in certainly the video piece we use. Where we go, we're fortunate because everybody has TrackMan and they all have the data, and we're able to get access and partnerships with the pro clubs and the facilities that we're training in and working in. We're in West Palm with the Nationals and Astros, so that's there. All the Dominican academies now have TrackMan and all the various you know, statistical you know, capabilities and facilities. So we're able to get that data and backload it in our own context. And you know, so we're, you know, as best we can, we stay in tune with it as best we can. We piggyback off our partners, and you know, it's you know, something that we try to work with players with, because there's a time whereby they're outside of us as well. So you want to make sure that you know, that they're able to kind of calibrate accordingly and use it effectively. And I think Green talked about a little bit there, where, you know, you got to be a little bit careful with some of the younger players too, on how, you know, how heavy you get into that.
Yeah, absolutely. Another question, lots of good questions. How do you coach or train the mental game for young players?
A lot of one-on-one time. We have a great environment that sort of creates failure, because we're high school players playing against pros. So the teaching moments are infinite, and they happen every single out and every single day. And it's a lot of one-on-one time. As I said, we're really fortunate in the program. We have a lot of professional alumni, you know, players that have kind of grown up, went through the program, went on and experienced it at all levels. So, you know, when the pitchers are down in the bullpen and they've got Chris Rietzman and they've got Jeff Francis and they've got Paul Quantrill and those types of people with them, certainly from a caretaker and a manager of the program, I'm not worried about where we are pitching wise. We're in a great spot. And, you know, similarly on the hitting side, when, you know, Morneau's got some people over there, or Peter Orr's got some people over there, and I'm missing people, but we've had, you know, just that level of coach that we have, and the environment that we're in, we're always, myself included, talking to players. And the biggest side of it is the management of failure and letting them know that it's okay. And you're going to fail. I mean, you can be really good, but you can't expect to be really good performance-wise here. You just faced 100 miles an hour today. Where did you see that coming in? You know, and there was a secondary pitch, it was a slider, and you probably weren't even sure what it was because you've never seen something like that. A lot of the personal side, a lot of talking, a lot of arms around people, really just kind of insulating the fact that they're good and they're here for a reason. They've got the ability to one day, be in the place of those players that they're kind of in awe of right now. And it's okay to fail in that process.
Yeah, not a lot of players at any level are going to have much success against 100 miles an hour plus a nasty second pitch.
No.
You, the names that you're sharing that are getting to work, these young players coming up are getting to work with. It's remarkable, and like you said, and we both have said, the family atmosphere that Baseball Canada as a whole creates with their teams. It's amazing. And then you get these superstars that are coming back, and they're one of the guys. They're one of the family, and they're getting to rub shoulders with big league all-stars. And it's just fantastic, the opportunity. And I know in my experience, the opportunity I got just to play with this program. Some more, and on that, you mentioned these names. Who's currently on the coaching staff for junior national team?
We've got Peter Rohr, Jeff Francis, and then actually from Chris Rietzman is going to jump back in as well, so he'll be with us. And so I mean, it's a pretty good group of guys, and a lot of guest coaches that come in. We get the Adam Stearns that come in, and Rick Johnson's also a full-time coach, played in the Olympics back in the 80s. And so it's our alumni kind of make trips, but the actual staff, the group of four, would be myself, Jeff Francis, Peter Rohr, Rick Johnston, and then Reitz is going to make the fifth because he's kind of pivoted a little bit here with what he's doing professionally, and we're going to get him back, which is great. Obviously, anytime we can get somebody like that to care so deeply and brings what he brings, it's makes it better.
And high quality, high character guys too.
Absolutely.
And a funny story about Peter Rohr is one of my favorite guys I got to play with. I don't know if you remember this. We had a little ritual before every game when we were in Athens that him and I would sprint and we'd race. I don't know what I was thinking, if I could beat that guy in a foot race, but I still tried every day. Still never got him.
Yeah. Yeah, over the boards. Remember those, over the boards.
Yeah. Another question, how many players on the roster, and specifically how many catchers do you carry?
Well, normally on a trip, 4 catchers for sure, because we have a lot of pitchers, as Aaron, you would identify with. It's a spring training environment, so you're running out 14 arms, and it's hot, and there's a lot of 40-footers with adrenaline and all that sort of stuff, so catchers tend to get nicked up. So at least four catchers a trip. Yeah. Sometimes a 5th catcher on the trips. How the roster works is we're about anywhere from 30 to 34 players on each of those sort of spring training type environments. And then the World Junior roster or the World Junior qualification roster would go down to 20. Mm-hmm. So, I can remember back to 2002 in Adam Lowen's year in the World Junior Championships, we had 4 catchers on a final roster of 18. And they were all in the field at the same time. So yeah, obviously, guys can do a couple things, and you're looking for your best roster at the end of the day. And then when it's an 18-year-old roster, it's certainly not as refined or defined as a pro roster would be down the road. So you're taking guys that you may move and put in a little different position than they play day in and day out back home.
So the versatility of players certainly plays in for when you're building your roster. It's being position and specific or pitcher specific, pitcher only. It's seeing it younger and younger now. I just love hearing that you have 4 catchers but 4 on the field at one time. That they're developing more than one position.
For sure.
So we got one more minute, Greg, and as per each session or each section I've had on here, I've asked more of a personal question. So what would be, and I'm not going to say your favorite, but one of your fondest memories of a junior national team event or an experience on or off field?
I think a couple. I think one I don't think I've ever seen, and I would challenge, people to kind of come up with a comparable. We in Brett Laurie's draft year, we were in the Dominican Republic. We played the Mariners in their complexes in Villa Maya, which is in up by the Capitol, and he hit 5 home runs in a game. He went 5 for 5, and he went from foul pole to foul pole. And it was literally foul pole to foul pole. Tom McNamara, who was at the time the scouting director for the Brewers, Greeny would know who Tom was, and you probably do too in your day, went on to be the scouting director, international scouting director with the Mariners. Tom was there. And I remember coming back to the hotel, and we were sitting down, we're having a bite to eat, and he said he had called back, and I think it was Jack Zaridnik at the time had said to him, he explained how the day went, and he said, well, you should stay a few extra days in, Tom, and follow him for the rest of the way. And he said, well, for what? I mean, I just saw Babe Ruth. I mean, what am I supposed to, what am I going to see? He hit over 700, and I think he had about, I think it was 10 or 11 home runs. And I can just remember the Dominican kids, and they were talented kids, but they were, they were crude. So they were, it was kind of a come at him with a fastball all day long, and can't believe that a Canadian kid would turn it around, and kept turning it around. And then another one down there was Adam Lowen. Would have been, I believe, his junior year, and we played in the Pirates Academy, and they had a bunch of free agent kids that they were working out, and they wanted us to play against them. And we started him, and I think he no-hit them for 6 innings and struck out just a ridiculous number. And the helmets that were flying, and all I could think of was these poor kids. I mean, they figured they're playing a group of Canadian high school kids, and they wanted to get signed, and they were probably thinking, this is perfect. I mean, Canadian kids at that time, we're going to fatten up, we're going to look great. And then this 6'6" left-hander rolls out there, and just, how bad of luck did they get? So, they'd be a couple. And then some of the things that Josh Naylor did that were just really at the high school level. I can remember him taking a Steven Strasburg, or not a Strasburg, sorry, Lucas Giolotto 98-mile-an-hour fastball in the instructional league at a 3-1 count, and he almost decapitated him. I remember Giolotto saying after, you should have let me know who that kid was, because he's not a high school player. So
that's awesome. Well, some great memories. Greg, our time's up, and I really appreciate you coming on, offering that insight, and a number of young aspiring players across our country are, certainly encouraged, and certainly have some more guidance as to, the steps they can take to put on that uniform and with the maple leaf in Canada across the chest. So thank you again for your time, and look forward to chatting with you soon in the future.
My pleasure, and thank you very much. Take care. Eh?
Thanks. You take care too. All right. Thanks so much to Greg. We got Ricky Romero joining us now. See you on the screen. Can you hear me fine?
Yeah. How you doing, Aaron?
Good to go. Oh, good to have you on here.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me. I'm really excited about this. It's always cool when you get to listen to stories. I listened a little bit to Greg, and just stories you never forget about certain guys. It's funny how you can't remember certain things, but you always remember the baseball stories.
Absolutely. So we had it was great getting to chat with you the other day, and like we said, we could sit and listen to stories for hours and hours. So we're gonna do a bit of both. I'm gonna introduce you, and I think everybody in Canada knows who you are, because we get Blue Jays games all the time, and pretty much everyone in Canada is a Blue Jays fan, unless you get the odd Yankee or, on the West Coast, a Mariner fan, but still everybody's a Blue Jay fan at heart, I believe. So Ricky Romero pitched with the Toronto Blue Jays from 2009 to 2013. Dialed back in your career, you played you ball at Cal State Fullerton. So you're from East Los Angeles, played ball at Cal State Fullerton, and you guys won a World Series title. So maybe we'll get to chat about that a little bit, because that's one of the dreams that young Canadian ball players that go down, play ball in the States, get a College World Series. And that's a pretty remarkable feat in itself, that you were obviously a huge part of that title. 6th overall pick in the draft for the Toronto Blue Jays. That's another remarkable feat. And then it was 2009 that you made your major league debut. One of the skip ahead, we're going to talk about that. I could spend the whole time just introducing you and telling your accolades, but one I saw in 2011 was an epic year for you. You were an All-Star in 2011. But for me, even more epic was on June 26th, you got your first major league hit as a pitcher.
Yeah.
So I think we'll talk about that too in a little bit, but it's awesome having you. And I know that the viewers, kids and adults alike, and myself, just huge fans, and can't wait to get to hear from you. So I'm going to start just throwing some questions at you, and we get to hear you. So we'll touch on kind of each level. So, you know, we're talking to young aspiring players. So if we start at high school, you had great success in high school. Maybe share a bit about your work ethic, your attributes, things that you focused on. What could you say to some of these young viewers that are going to help them see their goals and dreams realized?
Yeah, well, my work ethic started really early. I was just, when I got introduced to baseball at the age of 4, I think it was just love at first sight. My dad was a huge, into this day, he still plays, you know, in his league, and he loves baseball with a passion. So he always had me around. I mean, I learned how to keep score at the age of, I don't know, 7, 8 years old. I knew how to keep the scorebook and all that stuff. But I just, you know, my work ethic came from my mom and dad. I mean, they're my biggest heroes in life. And, you know, I just saw they went about it as far as, you know, putting food on the table, making sure we had what we needed. So for me, it was, I want to be a big leaguer, but how am I going to get there? I mean, we all dream of that, right? I mean, when we're that age, my dad would buy $6 tickets at a Dodger Stadium. We didn't live too far, and we'd sit in the pavilion, and I always wanted to go early for batting practice. Not so much so I can catch a ball, but I just wanted to watch these guys' routines at a young age. You know, I just, you know, so when I was in the big leagues, I always make sure that when I was playing catch or whatever I was doing it with good effort and good and just because I knew so many eyes were on me. So so it just started at an early age. One of the things I started doing, I'd always take my dad out to play catch, you know, long catch. You know, he was always hitting ground balls to me, and it was just at a local park in East LA where I grew up. And, you know, like I said, you have that dream of one day pitching in the big leagues, but you don't know if it's going to happen. And, you know, once I got to high school, I had developed that work ethic. I mean, it was, like I said, it was running, whether it was conditioning, whether it was, I didn't really pick up a weight till my first year, to the first day I entered Cal State Fullerton in college. I just was just this super lanky kid, you know, really, really skinny. And yeah, so from there, just nobody ever really had to push me. And I wasn't the best player my freshman year, my sophomore year, or my junior year. You know, I was just with the pack. You know, I never stood out. And then my senior year, it's like I almost took it to the next level on the mound. Success. You know, I struck out a lot of guys that year, and you know, at times I feel like the community that I lived in, you know, it's just they're not used to seeing a guy, you know, being looked at, and for me, you know, at times it was like, is he doing too much because he's trying to, you know, suck up to the coach, or, you know, you get all those that type of energy sometimes from your own teammates. And I was always like, you know what, I know what I want to do. I actually didn't know exactly what I wanted to do. I was like, you know, I'm lucky if I go play a junior college baseball, and then we'll see where it takes it from there. But, you know, when what changed for me was, you know, an article in the LA Times, and it led to USC, University of Southern California, coming to my house, knocking on my door and saying, hey, like, we're interested in you. Can we come watch you? When are you playing? Yada, yada, yada. I had the recruiting coordinator probably every single week at my house. And, you know, it was a dream of mine to play at USC. And obviously that didn't happen because, you know, USC found out. They tried to keep it on the hush. But I think I kept putting up good numbers, all within, you know, the same mindset of, you know, I have a goal, and that goal is just to be the best I can be today. You know, I never looked ahead. I never I didn't know anything about Division I scholarship. I didn't know any of that. I learned it as I went along. Agents knocking on my door as a senior. Like I said, East LA, it's not known for that. To this day, it's not known for that. No scouts ever came to that area. And in that year, it turned around, and then I think they saw when scouts get to talk to the head coach, he would speak highly of me. I mean, nothing was a lie. I mean, I would go out there, I would work hard. And, that's why I always tell kids, you just never know who's watching. It can be a pickup game. You just never know who's watching. And for me, that's how it kind of was. It kind of word of mouth, USC, now Cal State Fullerton, now Cal State Long Beach, now University of Arizona. And all these top Division I programs are knocking on my door. And me and my mom, my dad, and I would just sit there and we're like, what do we do? Like, we don't know how to do this. Agents knocking on your door, financial advisors coming, wanting to meet with you, every team coming out. And it was overwhelming, but at the same time, it was really fun. And I remember my senior year when we lost in the first round of the playoffs, obviously you tear up, it's your last high school game. And my mom looked at me and she was like, you know what, you have an opportunity to go play Division I baseball at Cal State Fullerton. So you get to fulfill the dream that many other kids here in this area can't fulfill, and so that kind of stuck with me. And I was like, all right, yeah, I have a whole, world waiting in front of me. So then, from high school, obviously to have a lot of success, you go to Cal State Fullerton, which is one of the most prestigious baseball programs, or still is. And I went there and it was eye-opening. I mean, I was in a culture shock. I grew up where it was, I don't know, 95, 97% Mexican community, Latino community. And now you go into a whole different world. Every player is just as good, if not better than you. So you're kind of like evenly matched now. And we're the number one team in the country, and all that stuff. And I was just kind of on the, that freshman year was just all about learning the Division I level. And it was just, like I said, overwhelming. But at the same time, it was like, all right, I get a chance and I get to work. And every time I get a chance to get the ball, I'm going to go out there and I'm going to prove myself. And that's what I did. I mean, I didn't pitch much my freshman year. I threw, I think, 50 innings, which is still a lot for a freshman. Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget, coming into my sophomore year, I think you and I spoke a little bit about it. I mean, it was just one of those things where, I came in as a pretty decent high recruit, pitched a little bit my freshman year. A lot of guys got drafted, so we had to start all over that sophomore year. And I'll never forget when our pitching coach, he's one by one, has us sitting down in the dugout and goes by one by one and asks us like, hey, or he's telling us what he expects from us this year. And he gets to me and he's like, you know what, Ricky, honestly, I'm going to be honest with you, and I'm going to be pretty blunt. It's been a huge disappointment. This whole fall is just, I expected more out of you. I expected to see this East LA mentality, this Bulldog mentality that I saw in high school. And nobody ever wants to be told that you're a disappointment, right? Nobody in the game of baseball. And but after that, it kind of opened my eyes even more. And I was like, okay, instead of going home crying about it, I said, what do I need to do? I looked at myself in the mirror and said, what do I need to do to get better? What do I need to do to get better? So I found those things and I said, okay, as soon as that opportunity comes, I'm not going to let go. So sure enough, we get to opening day, our number 1 and number 2 starters go down to start off the year. Right off the bat, they go down, and he comes calling me and he's like, hey, Rick, this is your opportunity. We need a Saturday guy. You're the guy that we're going to use. It's shows what you got. And from there on, I think I lost my first start we went up to University of Stanford. I lost, but it was a close game. It was 2004. I mean, it was, we win the national championship. I get to represent Team USA that year. Was All-American. All this was accomplished with being told that I was a big disappointment coming into that year.
Yeah.
And, the only player in the country to win a national championship and a gold medal that year, because I was the only one representing Cal State Fullerton for Team USA. So it was just it was just the opportunity. I took advantage of it. And like I said, one, you just never know who's watching. Two, when they critique you, hey, it's part of the game. You can either, I could have gone home and felt sorry for myself, or grab the bull by the horns, which is what I did. And then, obviously 2004 led to 2005. My name kind of became known even more. And it started from top 5 rounds to top 3 rounds, top 2 rounds to top 30 picks. And then it just throughout all that moment, I was just enjoying it. Honestly, it was just one of those moments where I was like, man, this is cool. Like, this is, like, I'm just going to go out there and continue to perform, and not once did I ever, like I said, was I ever like, oh my God, I got to be better, or this is not going to happen. It's just one door open to another, and then another. And then slowly I was knocking at the professional level and then knocking to the big league. So it's just, like I said, it's just one of those things where it's just, to have been able to accomplish what I accomplished in my career coming out of East LA was unreal, and until this day, I'm just very proud of what I was able to accomplish, even though it wasn't as long as I wanted it to be. Everyone wants to have 10 years in the big leagues. Everyone wants to win in the big leagues, win a World Series. But the fact that I was able to step on that big league mound, for 4+ years was just unbelievable. Many of us, as you know, Aaron, there's a lot of minor leaguers that don't get to that opportunity, and they just wish they'd have that one day. That one day in the big leagues and pitch in front of a sold out crowd and all that stuff. It's just to been able to do it for 4+ years is just something that's amazing.
Oh, it goes back to, like you said, your work ethic and what you did when no one was looking, right? Playing as if, you never know who's watching, right? And then you get a coach that kicks you in the butt at Cal State Fullerton, but you've developed that work ethic. You've developed that mentality that you're not going to be beat. So even those comments don't break you down. They challenge you, and look how you responded. And then you talked about, moving up and up and up in the draft. You're a 6th overall pick, and life in the minor leagues begins. So share a little bit about that journey from being drafted, going through the minor leagues, and then you're getting that first opportunity to pitch on that big league mound that's so coveted by so many players.
Yeah, when you get drafted, it's for one, when I was drafted, it was I had another moment with my mom. We lost my junior year. We were the favorites to go to Omaha again and compete in the World Series, and we didn't. We ended up losing to Arizona State, and I remember coming out of the clubhouse, and that one hurt more than losing a high school game, just because it was such a brotherhood there, and I was gonna miss those guys. And I remember crying. My mom looks at me and she's like, "Why are you crying?" She's like, "You got another huge opportunity. You're just drafted, and this is just another opportunity for you." So again, we were just taking it all in stride. So when I heard my name being called, it was prior to the Super Regionals. We were still playing. I just remember saying, "Oh my God, are you kidding me? An East LA kid in Canada? What?" Going from one end to another end, and to this day I say it's one of the greatest things to ever happen to me. Honestly, it really is. It's the relationships I've been able to build up there have been awesome. My wife is from there. My kids are half Canadian, so yeah. It's one of the greatest things ever. So yeah, when you get drafted, I flew to Toronto, did the whole press conference thing, and then it's like, okay, we got to meet Roy Halladay at the time. He was there. And, who would ever thought that a few years later he'd be my teammate, or I'd be his teammate. When you get drafted, you sign the papers, and the next thing you know, it's like, okay, you're heading to short season, and you're like, okay, what is that?
Yeah. And where is that?
Where is it? Yeah. So funny story about that. So they're like, yeah, you're going to report to short season. It's in Auburn, New York. don't know much about it, and I didn't even know that place in New York existed. So I fly into Syracuse, and this is how much I knew about the East Coast. We were driving, and I asked the driver, I was like, "Where's Auburn University at?" And he's like, "Oh my God." That's how sheltered I was here, just knowing just LA, you know, and he's like, "No, man, that's out in Mississippi or wherever it is."
Yeah.
Oh my God. I was embarrassed. I was like, oh, wow. So in right little town, like an hour and a half away from Syracuse, 2 hours, whatever it was. And there it is, this little stadium in the middle of a little town, and the town goes crazy for this team. And you walk into this clubhouse and you're like, my college clubhouse was way better than this. You know, it was definitely another shocker, you know, and now you're playing with all different races, you know, of kids, you know, or yeah, we were all kids, and guys all over the country, you know, or all over the world, you know, from Taiwanese players, Japanese players, Dominican, Venezuelan, you know, American players. It's just a whole mix, and you walk in there and you're obviously, I didn't know then, but when you walk in, they're like, oh, there's the bonus baby, you know, and then that's what, you know, and the bonus baby here, bonus baby there, you're paying for dinner, yada yada yada, all that stuff. And here's your locker. You don't get a nice locker. This ain't Cal State Fullerton anymore. This is your number. These are your pants. Just all new to me, and I'm like, whoa, okay. I like I said, to me, one of the coolest compliments I got that year, or a little later in my career, I think I was in high A, was like, this guy came up to me. He's like, how come you don't act like like you're a first rounder? And I'm like, because to me, everyone here is everyone's trying to accomplish the exact same thing. Like, just because you're a first rounder doesn't mean you're going to have a path. Like, every door is going to, obviously they invest so much money in you that they want you to get to the big leagues, but still, I mean, not every first rounder gets to the big leagues. Let's be serious, you know? And I was like, I feel the same way as you guys, you know, like I'm one of you guys, and everyone has one goal, and that's to get to the big leagues and help that team up there. So it never really hit me that I was a 6th picked overall or any of that. It was a tremendous honor, but at the same time, I had one goal in mind, that was to get to the big leagues. So yeah, I mean, when you go to Auburn, New York, you're playing in Batavia and you're playing in the New York Penn League, it's just completely eye-opening. And luckily I had one start, and then I got called up to high A Dunedin. So I skipped the low A level and went to the Florida State League. And that was another whole different, I mean, to go college, short season, and then high A to end the year. And now you're playing with a lot much older kids, or much older guys than myself. I mean, I remember the guys would be like, hey, let's go have a beer. And I'm like, I can't, you know, I'm still only 20 years old. So that was like, but those guys, that team taught me a lot. I mean, they took me under their wing, and everyone was really, really cool with me. Like I said, I mean, I never acted like I was better than anybody. I think that's, you know, that's no matter if you're the stud of the team, just make sure you always are a lending hand, you know, whatever you can do. I always remained humble. And that's one of the things my parents taught me, just remain humble through it all, you know, and if you're a good person, you know, people are going to love you, and they can't say anything bad about you. You know, you got to be a good person out there. And whenever somebody needs help, you lend your hand, and I guarantee you're going to be repaid back. And that's kind of how I approached it, you know, at every level. You know, I remember, you know, I went from Dunedin to New Hampshire, and in AA, I got my butt kicked. You know, I really did that. For 2.5 years, I really struggled at that level. And, you know, but I was out there working on towel drills, or what can I get better? And then I'd grab another guy and be like, hey man, like, let's go out, let's do this. You know, there was a young Venezuelan kid at the time who needed help, you know, and lucky for me, I speak Spanish fluently. So I was able to help those guys and be like, hey, like, let's go out and work. And I'd grab one of them, and he'd come out, and, you know, and he would try to help me. I'd try to help him, and vice, like, whatever we could do. And I remember that year, it was really mentally challenging for me. And, you know, luckily I had a good sports psychologist that I had worked with at Cal State Fullerton. His name was Ken Ravisa. He recently passed away. But he helped me a lot through those moments, because there was times where I was like, man, like I'm struggling. I don't know if I'm ever going to get out of the AA level. And he would be like, great, that's great, man. That's great. You needed this, you know, and then you've been so successful at every level. Like this is part of the baseball grind, you know, but I never let it tear me down. And then once I got the call to AAA, it was like a breath of fresh air. It was like, okay, you know, I'm off that level of AA now, before AAA. And then that was in 08, and then in 09, coming into spring training. I mean, I had just gotten put on the 40-man roster, and you know, I wasn't supposed to make the team or anything like that again. You know, it was one of those things where I'm going to take advantage of every opportunity I get, and it started off bad for me in 09 in spring training, bad, you know, and then it just. And I think I my expectations were so high. I was like, I want to impress everyone. You know how it is. You know, you want to do so much, and you know, you're facing such and such. And you know, these guys are like, Vernon Wells is like, hey man, like take it easy. And you're like, no, I can't. Yeah. But they're trying to get you to relax. And and so then I remember Brad Arnsberg was a pitching coach in 09, and that was I remember he's like, hey man, they're going to send you down, but I'm trying to get them to keep you here at least for one start. So you got to work with me. You got to listen to me. I've watched a few outings. I think I got what we can fix. So I'd show up there every morning before anybody would get there, and we'd work. And then they're like, all right, they're going to give you one start, and then they're going to evaluate that start and then maybe give you another one. So then I kind of went out, did my thing. Next thing you know, I get a second start. Next thing you know, I get a third start. And I'll never forget, we were in Kissimmee playing the Houston Astros, and they had the bases loaded. I'll never forget this moment, because Cito Gaston to this day says, that's the moment I said, this guy is going to be my fifth guy. I think I ended up going 6 or 7 innings in a spring training game. This is how much I had to pitch in order to make the team. Usually guys are like max 5 innings and they're out. And I remember I had the bases loaded, and I, instead of letting the pressure get to me, or the expectation of like, okay, how am I, like I said, all right, I've done this my whole life. I've done this my whole career. Just take a deep breath. Worst they get is 1 run. And next thing you know, boom, I get out of the inning, no runs, and it's a shutout. It's a 7-inning shutout that I threw, or 6-inning, whatever it was. And so when I made the team, I mean, I get called into the office, and Cito says, hey man, like, you know, you've had a great camp. And usually when you hear those words, like, oh, okay, yeah, I know where this is going, you know? Yeah. Like, congratulations, you made the team. And I was like, oh my God, you know, it was just one of those moments where it was like I was so speechless, and he's like, go pack up your stuff, man. We're leaving for Toronto tomorrow. Like, have opening day soon, you know? And I was like, go call your mom, go do whatever you got to do. And to me, that was one of the best calls I ever made to my mom and dad. And it was still early here. I think it was like 5 a.m. in West Coast. And my mom she's a school bus driver. So she was driving, and she was like, you can hear her screaming at the top. She didn't have any kids. She was on her way to the schools to kind of, you know, get ready for the day. And she was like, I was like, pack up your stuff. Well, I'll see you in Detroit. I got game, whatever, you know. And it was, you know, from there, the rest is history.
That's amazing. Are you okay if I have some more questions? We go a little long, or are you on a time crunch here?
Sorry, I sometimes ramble, but I mean.
No. It's not rambling. This is awesome. So if you're cool, I'm cool.
Yeah.
All right, sweet. It's in 5 minutes of conversation with you on the phone the other day, like you can tell there's a character to you. You're a high character person, and it's showing in the stories you're telling, in your resilience, in your respect for leadership and coaching staff, and just your humility through the process. And guys saying, you know, there is a stigma with the high dollar first round bonus baby, and you being one of the guys and working with guys. So and that's been a theme today, is character in athletes. So it's just living and breathing, and you getting, you know, from East LA to the big leagues, and I would say that a lot of, obviously you have talent, but without character, that probably doesn't happen. So that's just a credit to you, and it's also reflected in what things you're doing now, which I want to get to. I have a question before that, and a question that came in. It was asking about 2011. That was your All-Star year. Was there anything you did different? Was maybe something mentally? Can you just talk a little bit about that year, and about sorry, your experience in the All-Star game too? We want to hear that.
Well, it's one of those things where everything just clicked that year. Everything was just, I wouldn't even know I didn't do anything different. I mean, as far as like, I still prepared the same. I still went out and did the same thing. But I mean, it's all about confidence, right? I mean, it's one thing leads to another. You start having success. One outing, you go 6-7 innings, and the next thing you know, you do it again, and then you're like, I expect this out of myself every time. And in 2009, I had the chance to watch perhaps one of the greatest pitchers of our generation, and Doc Halladay, and I saw the way he went about his business and how he attacked it. And one of the greatest quotes he ever told me was, you don't regret failure, you regret effort. And it's so true. I mean, you're going to fail in this game. And he would tell me, he's like, you're going to fail in this game a lot, but what you're going to regret is if the effort wasn't there to prepare yourself. And that's why he prepared to the max. And I would watch him, and I would study him, and he was an intimidating guy as it was, but any chance I got to just sit there and ask him a question and pick his brain, I would do it, whether it was on the plane, whether it was, in the locker room, whether it was in the weight room. I had to pick my spots because I was a young rookie at the time. And, when we were coming up at the time, it was like the veterans, and hey, if you're a rookie, you got to your ears open and keep your mouth closed.
Yeah.
So I just would watch. And I think when I got my 10th win in the big leagues, my rookie year, he pulled me aside and he's like, I'm proud of you, man. Double digits as a rookie and wins is a huge deal. I'm really proud of you. So I knew he was watching everything I was doing. And I thought that was pretty cool. So from there, I think I learned from that mentality and took it into 2010, and then 2011, it just exploded. It just, I was in the zone every start. My bullpens, I mean, our pitching coach at the time, Bruce Walton, and our bullpen coach, Pat Henkin, they're like, hey, I'd throw, and then 2 days later, I throw my bullpen, and they're like, you can go in a game today, huh? And I was like, 100%. That's how dialed in I was. And like that year, I mean, I would sometimes get done warming up, and I'd tell the guys in the bullpen, you guys have the night off. I'm going 9 tonight.
That's
and
awesome.
I would do it. It was just one of those things where you psych yourself out, and you when I was on that mound, I'm not a cocky guy off the field, but when I was on that mound belonged to me. That's the way I saw it. It just belonged to me. And it was just, this is my time to shine, and that's kind of how I took it. Nobody's going to beat me tonight. And that's the mentality you have to take at that level, because those guys pitching the AL East is not the easiest thing, especially during that time. And so, yeah, I mean, it was one of those things where I just was in the zone every single start. And if I'd have a bad outing, I was like, all right, I know what I need to do to bounce back and get back on the horse. And obviously I was a late addition to the All-Star game in 2011. And it was, I mean, how do you even explain that? You're walking into a clubhouse full of legends, from Adrian Beltre to David Ortiz. Just so many. Paul Konerko was there at the time. It was just so cool. Like, I remember walking in, and it was me and Gio Gonzalez. It was our first All-Star, and we just sat there, and he's like, hey, you know what to do? And I was like, no. Like, I don't know. It set us together too. And we were just sitting in a corner, and Big Papi is just sitting in the clubhouse. Like, it's just their day. Like, he's done it for like 10 plus years at the All-Star level.
Yeah.
And everyone's just, from Justin Verlander to John Lester, like all those guys just all in one clubhouse for 2 days. It was so cool. It was just one of those things where I wish I had more pictures, but everything's in my mind, because everything's happening so fast. And, from sitting watching the home run derby on TV to now sitting, at field level.
Oh man.
Yeah, with my family, with my little brother and my little sister, and we're sitting there and we're just watching this thing. And I mean, I won't say the name of the guy who won it because he's in a bit of trouble right now.
Yeah.
But Jose Bautista was at the top of the baseball world at that time, and watching his success from when he got traded to us and seeing him at that level where he was the biggest name in baseball, just watching all that, it was just so cool to me, and it, obviously I didn't get to pitch in it. I was warming up. I was the guy that if the game was tied, I was going to come in and throw 2-3 innings, whatever they needed. But I remember warming up, and my heart was just the whole time. I just wish I had a heart rate monitor to see how fast it was beating. It was just one of those things where it was like, all right. But obviously that didn't happen, but just to be part of the whole festivities and all that stuff. I mean, when you watch an All-Star game now, it's cool. You can say, hey, I did it. I was there. I was part of that, and it's such a cool feeling.
Oh man, I bet just you get asked that all the time and just got stories and stories.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many cool. Like I said, I mean, being an East LA kid and just having the stories, the memory bank that I have. I mean, it's cool when I get around my friends and I get to just talk. I mean, from facing Ken Griffey Jr. My rookie year, that was another thing. I mean, that guy, I grew up idolizing him and that swing. And remember when he came up to the plate, I mean, and he started doing his little swing.
Yeah,
I had to step off and kind of regather myself. And I was like, wow, that's it. That's him. And that was a cool moment. Like I said, I mean, from facing guys like that, Derek Jeter, all those guys, to being teammates with Roy Halladay and Vernon Wells was a big figure at the time in Toronto. Scott Rowland, who might be a Hall of Famer, all that stuff, and just the rich tradition that the Toronto Blue Jays organization has, when you have Robbie Alomar coming into your clubhouse, all the time, and the next thing you know, he's a good friend of yours, George Bell and Jesse Barfield, and you start learning the history of these guys. You're just like, wow, these guys were like, they're huge idols here, and I go to those Winterfest events, and it's like Fred McGriff and Tim Raines, and you're just watching these guys, and you're like, wow, like I'm lucky, I feel beyond lucky, beyond blessed to even be in the same room as those guys. And sometimes when you get to listen somewhat to theirs, I thought I had stories, man, those guys their stories are just above and beyond, of baseball stories. So it's always cool when you get that fraternity together, and whether you're young or old, I mean, there's always just stories to go around.
Oh yeah, I love you're a big leaguer, but yet you're still, one, you have that respect for the veteran, the elder player, and two, you're humble enough to seek them out. Like, hey, what can I do? What can I do to get better? And just the mentality to always learn, always getting better. You've never arrived, but you just keep pushing to get better. And that's again,
and that's the thing, man. I mean, even in 2011, I'd still look around and pinch myself. I'd look around and I'm like, man, I'm pitching in the big leagues. Like, this is cool. It just never really like hit me. Now that I get to sit back, in 2012, I had a tough year. I'm not gonna lie, it was tough. From injuries, but I also, my mentality was like, I like was in this hole and I wanted to get out of it so bad. My expectations were so high, and I was like, I gotta climb out of it. And I over analyzed everything. And I think that was part of my downfall. It was like, I was so hard on myself from having a bad outing to going home and just sitting there and just not even getting proper rest because you're so mad at yourself and you're like, what can I do to get better? So, I mean, my advice is that it's not the end of the world, it's not. And I think that's what separates the greats. Those guys are able to like just snap it back into like, okay, I had a bad outing, boom, or I had 2 bad outings. Okay, it's not going to continue to trickle down. And I think at times for me, I was so hard on myself. I was in the computer room every single day. And at times that can be, that can be a bad pitfall you fall into. And on top of that, you're dealing with injuries and you're trying to pitch through all that. And it just, it just snowballed for me, and I wasn't able to recover from it, and it was tough, but at the same time, it has taught me so much more now that I'm retired, and I'm able to look back, and it's lessons that I'm able to teach my kids, I mean, it'd be sweet and dandy if I can say, hey, I was so successful, like I never failed, but I can say, like, listen, like, this is what happened to me. This is, the failures of this game has taught me so much more about life, and having, 2 boys and raising them, and now expecting a girl in April. I mean, it's just,
oh, congratulations. That's amazing.
Thank you. So it's just one of those things where it just, it's opened up my eyes even more, don't overanalyze the game, let it come to you, and when you're struggling, it's okay. As Doc said, you don't regret failure, you regret effort. If you prepared yourself to the max and things didn't go your way, it's okay. You just take a deep breath and say, okay, I'm going to get better tomorrow. And there's always tomorrow, and I think that's the beauty of this game. There's always tomorrow, and there's always a chance to get better. The day you stop learning in this game is the day that, you're done. And it's always great to remain humbled and win, and when you don't, and when it doesn't go your way, when you fail or something like that, just know that it's okay. And to the parents listening in, I mean, support your kids. My mom and dad were there for me from the get-go, and support them and love them, show them love. We're at the way baseball is now, your kids are not going to be big leaguers at the age of 9, 10 years old, 11 years old. Let them go out there and have fun, and enjoy it, learn the fundamentals of it. Watch how certain guys pick, if you're watching on TV, pick a guy and see how he's, sometimes they show the warm-up pitches or how they're doing it in between innings. Watch all of that. I was so into all that stuff. Or whenever, hopefully it changes soon, and we're able to go back to a stadium and pick a guy and just watch how he goes about his routine, and you learn a lot from that kind of stuff.
You have time for 2 more questions?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right, sweet. One of the questions that came in, and it's what a typical day looks like for you in the MLB, and I know it changes for a starter. So how about take us through a typical start day for you?
Oh, start day. It was, I'd wake up and I would always have breakfast with my catcher. I'm sure you guys have heard, some of you guys have heard these stories, but JP Aaron CB at the time was a catcher, and I'd always go to breakfast with him. And we'd wake up wherever we were at, we had to find pancakes somewhere, that was my thing. And we'd go, we had our little spot in Toronto, on the road. I'd be Googling right before we got to the city, where was the closest pancake spot. And, then I'd head back to the hotel, maybe take a little nap, grab some lunch, and then head to the stadium. I mean, when 7 o'clock game, you're there at, you feel you're late if you show up at 4 o'clock. Because when you're not pitching, you're there at I wanted to be there at 12:30 every day, 12:31. They're like, what are you doing being there 6 hours before a game? And I'm like, I enjoy being in the big league clubhouse. I don't know how long I'm going to do it for. What if it gets taken away tomorrow? So I enjoyed seeing my jersey hanging in the locker. I could sit there and stare at it all day. It was just so cool. And so when I'd start, I'd head to the ballpark about 3:34. I'd come in, I had my little routine. I'd get dressed. I wouldn't put my baseball pants or my jersey yet. I'd kind of just walk around in shorts and throw on my headphones and kind of just watch a little bit of TV and just go in, watch some video, refresh my memory, go through my notes. And then, around, 6:15, I'd go into the training room, get stretched out. I kind of had it all timed to a T, and then I'd put on my pants or put on my socks, put on my pants, put on my jersey. At 6:45, I wanted to start warming up. I always knew that it took me about 6-7 minutes to get warm. And I always wondered that when I'd go to big league games, and I was like, doesn't the game start at 7:05? This guy's still throwing at 6:57, like holy smokes, this guy's going to be rushed. And then I was in those shoes and I was like, wait, you're not rushed. You actually feel like you have a lot of time. I'd warm up, and I had a routine once I went into the bullpen, and it was certain fastballs, throw certain changeups. And I wouldn't, if there's any young pitchers out there, I wouldn't break my head if I didn't have a pitch working in the bullpen.
Mm.
If it was a curveball that I wasn't sticking it, or a changeup that just didn't have a feel for it, I still had to stick to my routine, because if I sat there and started, getting mad about not having the curveball that night, then it was going to be a long night. I just would tell myself, all right, I'm going to go in with what I have. If I don't have my curveball here in the bullpen, I'm going to try and find it in the game, and I'm going to find the perfect situations to throw it, whether it's 0-2 or 0-0, but I wasn't going to throw it 2-0, if I didn't have a feel for it. So it was just one of those things where my routine, nobody can mess with my routine. And once I had that down, I knew I had enough time at 7:02, enough time to walk down, sit down, have a drink of water, and then boom, game starts.
Perfect.
It's funny how I still remember it. Like I said, I don't remember what my kids were doing yesterday, but I remember my routine about pitching.
You could probably walk us through the exact pitches you did in your warm-up routine pre-game.
Probably, yeah, more than likely, yes.
Yeah, that's a cool point. You said that if something's not working in the bullpen, don't force it. Stick to your routine.
Yeah,
because sometimes it shows up in the game anyways.
Yeah,
you've been fighting for it for no reason, right?
And lots of time. I mean, everything works off your fastball. So if you don't have your fastball, I mean, it can be a bit of a tough night, because you can't sit there and throw 50% changes and 50% curveballs. But you can still, like, there was times where I didn't have feel for my fastball, but I would still be like, okay, how do I get it? Maybe I throw 2 changes in a row and then get me back to the fastball, whatever it was, and I threw complete games without having my best stuff at times, and that everyone always thinks like, oh, you had your best stuff today. No, I didn't. I fold them at the right time, that exactly when I didn't have my stuff, that's when you actually feel like you go out there and you pitch, and like, all right, I'm even more when it's nice and easy, you're like, pah, 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 you're just hitting every spot, you're feeling good. But when you're not, it's like, all right, I gotta pull the reins a little bit and kind of think a little bit more about what I'm gonna do. And those were the best games, those were the ones that I was the most proud of, because I was like, wow, that was, I'd walk out of there and I was like, man, I'm mentally exhausted.
Yeah. The ones where it's just flowing, you don't even have to think. It's too easy.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, I remember, there was times you're like, you're not tired? I'm like, no, I'm mentally tired. I'm not, my body feels great. I can go out and throw 5 more innings, but man, my mind right now, I just want to go to sleep.
Yeah. So one more thing, and we chatted about your camps that you do now. So post baseball, and obviously you have a heart for the youth, and I'd love for you to share your camps, why you do it.
It was one of those things where, like I said, East LA doesn't get the love, and I always wanted to head back to my hometown and host a camp. And it was really, I didn't know how. I didn't even know how to begin putting a camp together. And my friends, I have a great group of friends, are like, hey man, we should host a camp. Let us kind of put it together. And then you just, you show up, you give us the yes and no's, what you want, and yada, yada, yada. So it kind of led as like a group text message. And the next thing you know, boom, we had it going. And, I just feel like with the way baseball is going nowadays, to me, it's kind of sad that sometimes in order to showcase yourself, you have to pay a lot of money and all that stuff, where, the lower income players, like, how do they get seen? If I was playing in this era, I don't think I would have gotten seen. It's just, there's so much money involved, I feel like. So I said, you know what, I'm going to put a camp together. I invited the scout who drafted me. I have a few other scout friends, and they talked to these guys. We held a whole seminar on we invited somebody from USC on how to, you got to apply for a clearinghouse and all that stuff. Like, there's so much paperwork you got to do to go play at the college level to get cleared, and your grades, transcripts. So we started with that. And then I had the scouts, kind of similar to this, pretend we were in a real classroom.
Yeah.
And we had all these group of kids, and these scouts, what do we look for? What do we expect? And the next thing you know, it was like, we brought in a few players, same as I'm doing right now, Q&A. And next thing you know, we had this camp, and we ran them through through a hitting station, through a pitching station, through a fielding station, through an outfield station. And we even brought out a strength and conditioning coach to talk to them about how to take care of their bodies and stuff like that. So it was all like, honestly, that day, it was probably one of the coolest, most proudest days of my career, you know, to be able to do that. You just feel so much love. And I went to bed with a huge smile on my face. I told my wife, wow, I can't believe we actually pulled this off. And we were looking for, it was actually probably a year ago today when we did it. And I wish we were hosting it this year, you know, but obviously with all this stuff going on, we were unable to, but hopefully we're able to get it back on track. And hopefully my goal is to build it a little bigger. And maybe next thing you know, we can hold showcases, actual showcases for these guys and say, hey, you know, anybody's welcome. And maybe you find, you know, the one, you know, I mean, change one life. If we can change everyone's life, it would be perfect, you know, but if we can change one and helping them transition to the next level, that would be great, you know. So it's just, I didn't know how to go about it, but I'm glad I did. And my friends helped me with it, and it turned out perfectly. So anything that I can ever do to help the community, I mean, whether it's even in Toronto, you know, I've gotten a chance to speak at a lot of different events. It's always cool. You know, we host the Toronto Blue Jays, obviously not this year, but they always host camps all across Canada. And whenever you do those, it's so cool, you know, like it's the least I can do, you know, to repay the game that gave me so much, you know, and it's cool when you're able to make an impact like that.
Awesome. I think you can rest assured that you say you hope you change one life. I think you're probably changing many lives simply by your leadership, your character, the life skills you're teaching these kids at your camp. So you and I both know that goes beyond baseball. So I just congratulate you on the success with that, and keep doing what you're doing, because
thank you. I really appreciate it. Like I said, to me, it's an honor that you guys would even consider me for this. I really appreciate you guys reaching out. I'm glad I can help out in any way that I can. You know, to me, it's like I said, baseball is what I did, and you know, it doesn't define me as a person. You know, and I feel like I have so much more to offer as a person, and whatever experiences I'm able to share, I mean, I'm more than happy to. And any help anybody, you know, ever needs in talking, like this is what we do these things for, you know, to try and help out the young kids to let them know that, hey, it's possible, you know, the big leagues is possible. I know, you know, there's some differences in the US game to the Canadian game as far as like being seen and all that, but don't lose hope. You know, like I said, you just never know who's watching. I mean, I was East LA once again, you know, nobody goes in there and I came out, you know, I just kept, you know, digging my own path, you know, and I said, all right, nobody's going to deny me of this. And if you take that mentality, I mean, sky's the limit.
Awesome. Well, Ricky, I've taken almost double your time.
No, it's good. Like I said, we can keep talking, but I get it.
But I really appreciate you coming on. And again, what an encouragement and resource, to say the least, for so many young kids. So keep doing what you're doing. And I'm sure we'll be reaching out with that Canada East LA connection going.
So, yeah, sounds good.
Yeah, awesome. Well, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And again, thank you so much. Just such a privilege to get to speak with you.
Oh, no, thank you. Thank you. It's a privilege to be here.
Awesome. Great. Good chatting with you. And good luck with those camps and everything moving forward.
Thank you.
All right. All right. Take care, Ricky.
You too.
All right. Right on. That wraps it up. Amazing group of speakers and a lot of great info. So thanks everybody for tuning in. I believe this will be on the website. You can check this out and you know, go back over that info and keep reaching out, and look forward to seeing some future big league Canadian ball players coming out of BC and well, all of Canada for that matter. So signing out now, and thanks so much. It was a pleasure being a part of this.